across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening to you. Hello. It's Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And of course, at midnight, it is your chance to talk back. And I'm wondering what you thought of the King's speech. And if you didn't hear it, don't worry. I can bring you the highlights. There aren't many. Today, the King just really looked like he didn't want to be there, and I suspect he is absolutely fuming about what's going on in his government at the moment. But there were one or two things in there that I do want to discuss with you, like digital ID was back on the agenda. And I thought, hang on a minute, you've snuck that in, haven't you, after we all emphatically said we're not interested in it. But there you go. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the other issues that this government think is what we're concerned about. No mention of sorting out the benefits bill, no mention. A lot of the things that you are worried about, I don't think were addressed in that King's speech. So I want to talk to you about that come midnight. I've got clips. I can tell you all about what was in it, all the things that weren't in it, and we can discuss really if this is enough, if this is the right direction for this government. I mean, the King must have been livid because nobody knows that the Keir Starmer's even going to be there. But anyway, we'll be talking about that in just a moment. So do give me a call. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know what you think. You know, this was his chance again for yet another reset, wasn't it? To show some passion, show some understanding, show some belief in the country, show some belief in us. And I just don't think it delivered. But you may well think it did. So you can give me a call and let me know. 0344 499 1000. Calls charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. With us to go through the newspapers, and I can only imagine what's on the front of those. They've been very dull, haven't they, the last few days, is Vincent Moss, former political editor. Matthew Lesh is joining us to discuss the new ideas for the BBC funding, and that is that even if you just watch Apple TV and Netflix, they want to charge you 180 quid for that privilege. So we'll be discussing that. Also, we're heading to Taiwan to chat with Ross Feingold. We haven't spoken to him for a while, actually, to find out what is going on in Taiwan and how they feel about the Xi-Trump meeting that is currently underway. Or actually, well, it's the big things are happening tomorrow and Friday, but he is now in China. So Taiwan must be absolutely terrified at the moment because China has got the upper hand when it comes to dealing with America right now. So we'll be discussing that in just about half an hour or so. But before that, the King's speech has set out the government's legislative agenda, but will it be Keir Starmer's leadership that will implement it? Wes Streeting's allies say the health secretary is about to resign, looking at doing that tomorrow. Ed Miliband says that he's got the numbers to mount a challenge as well for the leadership of the Labour Party, which ultimately means Prime Minister. And supporters of the Defence Minister Al Khan's have told the BBC they expect him to who? We expect him to stand in the Labour leadership contest if one is triggered by Streeting. They'll all like rats, won't they? All attacking a carcass. They'll all be out. Anyway, to discuss this further, Paul Connew joins me now, former newspaper editor and political commentator. Paul, enough politics around for you at the moment?
Plenty of politics, in fact. And if you thought today was an extraordinary day,
wait till tomorrow.
Wait till tomorrow. Yes.
I know. I mean, that's the thing at the moment, isn't it? So look, Wes Streeting had his 16-minute meeting this morning. A lot of people speculating that not much happened in that meeting, and yet we're hearing
a coffee. It must have been an espresso, though. I think,
yeah,
in fact, because he wasn't in there for 16 minutes, including in getting in the door and out again.
Exactly. So, I mean, what on earth could have transpired in that 16 minutes, because he walked out. He walked straight away from the press. Which is unlike him, and you know, he raised his eyebrows when Keir Starmer was talking about a coup, or you know, about the lists and things like that, in a rather cheeky fashion.
I gathered there was an agreement, in fact, you know, that they wouldn't go public, as it were, until out of respect to the King, until after his speech. Although that didn't actually stop some of West Streeting's allies briefing certain journalists, so even that wasn't really honoured. But
no.
But anyway, tomorrow is going to be interesting.
So because I mean, I would have thought that West Streeting would have denied it by now if it were to be denied. So it does look like there's going to be some challenge mounted tomorrow.
Unless he has the most extraordinary rethink, it is happening tomorrow. The only question is how early the announcement comes. But there's no doubt about it. You know, it's going to happen. But then after that begs so many more questions. Not least, you know, what timeline will there be for, you know, because it's quite clear that Keir Starmer is not going quietly. He's going to stand. So it's going to be a contested leadership contest, and you know the timeline's vital, because you know a lot of people want to make sure that Andy Burnham can stand. So
But that's not a given, is it? I mean, Burnham's in town now, just rubbing salt into the wounds potentially, and trying to gather some momentum. But they can't vote for him right now, and you know, if he does, there are rumours that there's a Labour MP willing to step down so that there can be a by-election. But all of this takes time, right? And it is by no means a certainty in this different world now that we find ourselves in that Burnham will win a by-election.
No, exactly. We don't know. It seems pretty certain that he has got one MP, but we don't know who, to actually agree to stand down and obviously then trigger a by-election. How safe that seat is, you know, we don't know. But of course, you have the Burnham supporters, and there are quite a lot of them on the Labour backbenches, who will be lobbying very hard to make sure that the timeline on this isn't so quick that only West Streeting can stand, or what the left of the party will do if the timeline doesn't allow Andy Burnham to actually enter the race, then either or both of Angela Rayner, or perhaps more likely Mr. Miliband, will actually put their hats into the ring. You know, so I don't think this is going to be a whatever the timeline, it will not be a straightforward West Streeting v the Prime Minister contest.
No, and it's very difficult to see that even the Labour Party is united in what they want. Right? There are factions within Labour that are very left. There are some that are right. There are some that want a Tony Blair figure. There's all sorts of that they can't even decide who they are.
In my column on election day last week, in fact, I mean, the headline was "Defiant Prime Minister or Dead Man Walking." Well, in fact, I mean, he is a dead man walking, but the only question is, when's the funeral politically? And the National Executive are the people, but of course he has influence on there, who decide the timeline on this. And of course, the theory is that the Prime Minister will use his influence as much as he can, but that influence is actually declining, to try to make it a fairly quick contest, as will indeed West Streeting's team. So on that level, there probably is a degree of agreement, but others will be others, and there are Burnham allies as well on the National Executive Committee who will be saying no. And the unions are saying no. They wanted probably linked in at the earliest to the party's annual conference in Liverpool, which is at the very end of September.
Exactly. And I was listening to union leaders today talking about that, saying, look, we've been very clear what we want, but we're also trying to be clear about when we want it. But it's not it's not really their choice, is it? I mean,
well, they have influence within the committee. I mean, it's pretty clear that it was the Prime Minister's influence, because he's on the committee too, that actually thwarted Andy Burnham from standing in the by-election. You know, and but the committee is actually, I think, chaired by Shabana Mahmood, of course. In fact, who isn't exactly the Prime Minister's favourite at the moment, having been the first cabinet minister to actually go public, in effect.
Yeah, to brief, yeah.
That he should go.
Well, I mean, whatever happened, I mean, if Keir Starmer does somehow manage to cling on, that's by no means that means stability, does it? Because you're going to have a reshuffle. He's going to be angry with people if he does manage to stay on. He's going to want to get rid of a lot of people, and he loses people in his super majority.
I mean, I've been writing and arguing for months and months that he's not the man to lead the Labour into the next general election. But I think it's only 50-50 that he would lose against Streeting in a short-term election, which is why the Burnham team think that if they can win, and they would win if it went longer,
yeah.
he could get into Parliament, and I think that's pretty clear. Burnham possibly is the one who can unite, or an uneasy alliance, but the one who can possibly hold the left and the right and the centre, in fact, you know, together, no matter how uneasily. I mean, Shabana Mahmood is a strong campaigner and could put her hat into the ring, but and Reform actually fear her more than anybody. In fact, she's the person they'd least like to see leading the Labour Party, but she's on the right of the party. She's part of Blue Labour, and the left are never going to accept her. So I mean, there's no way, even if she entered, that she could actually win it.
But isn't that the problem that Wes Streeting has as well?
Well, Streeting, of course, is seen to be on the right, not perhaps because of the migration bill, which has really incensed, in fact, you know, the left. If Shabana Mahmood is actually, I mean, Angela Rayner, for example, and I think this is true, has actually told Keir Starmer if he wanted her support, he has to sack Shabana Mahmood. So this is how the knives are being wielded, in fact. But Wes Streeting has been reluctant to actually declare himself for the simple reason that everybody's aware of the old political maxim, courtesy originally of Michael Heseltine, he who wields the knife doesn't inherit the crown. So, but I think finally, either of his own volition or his supporters have persuaded, Wes Streeting that he can't delay any longer. And I think one of the reasons for that is the fear that, in fact, that if they wait too long, then certainly a certain Mr. Burnham may well be able to enter the contest.
Yeah. And Keir Starmer must be worried about that. Well, listen, what did you think about the King's speech today? This was another opportunity for a reset, a bit of a push.
Well, it was a sort of reset, a sort of a mini reset. I mean, there's a couple of interesting things in there. I mean, the most controversial is probably the closer ties with the EU, which frankly I support. I mean, I've got a strange history because I'm a staunch Remainer, but I was one of the few commentators who did predict Leave winning the referendum. Although I also, at the same time, forecast that the public within a few years would change their mind, which every poll suggests they have. I mean, this is the great paradox at the moment, Petrie. You've got a situation where every opinion poll shows the majority of the public now regret Brexit, and yet the same opinion polls suggest that Mr. Brexit, in the form of Nigel Farage, is the likely or the likeliest to become prime minister.
I know.
I think that's I've argued for a long time that that's a distinct possibility, but I wouldn't. But it's not necessarily a probability, and it's definitely not a certainty. And today didn't do Mr. Farage any favours either with the announcement, of the official investigation into his £5 million loan.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that. I've got that on my list here. It is about that £5 million, which he should have. A lot of people say,
of course.
Yeah, and he should have declared, right? Because you're supposed to declare anything before you enter into the world.
I mean, Nigel Farage and Reform, insist that they've had it legally checked out and they have no fears about it. But on the face of it, it's hard to see how this doesn't actually comply with the rules. Especially the rule that says that if you're going to stand as an MP, you have to declare everything in the 12-month preceding that. And on that basis, it's hard to see why this shouldn't have been reported. I mean, and it's also, I think, the story's really broke or got a real pickup too late, perhaps, to have much influence. In fact, in last week's elections, but it doesn't pass the smell test, I think, for a lot of voters. And for those who are sort of toying with going to Reform rather than being Reform diehards, it could actually be damaging.
Do you think it is, though? I mean, just speaking as somebody who does phone-ins, right, and has done phone-ins for many years, I tend to think that a lot of people around the country, things like that, they don't really care. They think, well, we're used to politicians being a little bit dodge. We're used to hearing about tax not being paid, council tax not being paid, stamp duty not being paid, and they all survive it. Do you genuinely think that people will?
I think that I take your point, in fact, but it's one that every other party will be going at, and it's not going to go away, this one, unless he's cleared right through to the next election. But the other Achilles heel, I think, for Mr. Farage, which could yet thwart his ambitions, is his closeness to Donald Trump, whose popularity is such that opposition parties, if I were advising Labour or anybody else, I'd be saying, keep hammering away about the Trump connection, keep hammering away about his past praise for Putin, and also things like the controversy around his alleged remarks, rather anti-Jewish neo-Nazi remarks as a schoolboy, but quite a teenage schoolboy, not a 12-year-old. I think he was 17 at the time of most of them. And also this one. I mean, the £5 million didn't come from some friend or some admirer. Well, it came from an admirer, but he's also Reform's biggest political donor. So the idea that is being argued, well, this was a totally private, donation, personal donation for his own security, and it was non-political. Well, how non-political can it be if the same person is also the biggest individual donor to your party?
Well, and also he was caught talking about, suggesting that the crypto company was a really good thing, wasn't he? As well.
It's official reform policy. Yeah. Official reform policy to make Britain a cryptocurrency powerhouse. So I mean, it doesn't have the look of complete detachment and non-interest.
But a lot of people, again, I mean, I suppose these are the die-hard reformers that you were talking about, would just say, they're just going after him because he's shaken up the status quo. They're just having a go at him. Other people have done it. So a lot of people, it won't shift.
Well, you're right, the diehard reformers won't be bothered about this.
Well, like the diehard MAGA don't care about Donald Trump saying today, I don't think about Americans, living experience or their finances.
But look at Trump's poll ratings. I mean, I knew Trump pretty well personally before he went into politics when I was based in New York.
Wow. What did you think of him?
His personality hasn't changed. I mean, he is the great narcissist, but in fact, his poll ratings at the moment are crashing. And the longer the Iran war isn't resolved and the Straits of Hormuz stay closed, they're going to carry on going down. I mean, Republicans on Capitol Hill are starting to get very worried about the midterms now. In fact, but Donald Trump is a law unto himself. But he'll be a lame duck president if they lose. Well, they're pretty certain to lose. If they go
ahead, Paul.
Well, it'd be very
without
difficult.
Interference as well.
It'd be very difficult to actually stop it. In fact, I think even the Supreme Court, which is, in some ways more recently has been less of a Trump puppet court. In fact, I don't think would support any attempt to actually stop the midterms going ahead. The question is, I mean, the lower house, I think, is almost certain. Well, virtually certain to go to the Republicans. The Senate's more finely balanced. But if he lost both, he would truly be a lame duck president.
Which he could. He absolutely could. He's in China at the moment, and looking at the relationship, that's shifted, hasn't it? China has got the in Trump's words, is holding the cards.
Yes, I mean the general view of most American political commentators is, in fact, that apart from the diehard MAGA supporters in the media, but the most objective ones are saying, Trump's going there as the supplicant, trying to enlist Xi's help in actually getting him out of the Iran war. But
that's an interesting shift, isn't it? If Trump, as you say, as the narcissist, even recognises that. He probably doesn't. He probably thinks that he's going in there as, the brilliant Trump. But those around him will know that China is holding the upper cards at the moment.
Exactly. And let's not forget that China didn't buckle under his tariff regime. No. And it was Trump who actually had to throw in the towel, as it were, on that one, or certainly beat a sort of fairly heavy retreat. So, I mean, it's fascinating times. But back on the subject of this country, I mean, tomorrow is going to be an extraordinary day, and I think there are going to be more people actually. More media assembled on, outside number 10 than possibly ever, in fact,
Yeah, I mean, there was a scrum.
There
was a scrum on Monday.
Drama rhymes with Starmer, and this is a true Starmer-rama drama.
Yeah, it genuinely is. But if I had money, Paul, which because of the last couple of governments I haven't, I would say that Keir Starmer could cling on in there. We could still be. I don't think he'll do the next election.
Well, I said to you, I think he definitely won't do the next election. I think it's 50-50. He could win against Streeting if it's a two-person matchup. But if it's a wider field, and certainly if Burnham actually, if the timeline does allow Burnham to actually join, then I think he is absolutely doomed. But it's why if you like, that those who are in the Burnham camp, going to fight so hard to try to get this pushed back until September, so that in theory Burnham could become an MP again by then, provided it's genuine that he's found a safe-ish. I don't want to say a safe seat, a safe-ish.
These days, safe-ish. I think I think we can go with that. Well, Paul, like you said, interesting times. I often say I wish they weren't quite so interesting, but they certainly are. And the scrum begin.
But for we political anoraks, these are like manna from political heaven. Actually.
Well, it is a soap opera, isn't it? Well, they say show business for ugly people. Is politics. So I think we can safely say that. Paul, a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. I hope I do it again very soon. Paul Connew there, who's former newspaper editor and political commentator.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you. Coming up at midnight, of course, it is your chance to talk back. And I don't know whether you watched the King's speech, probably not. It was fairly dull. I have to be honest with you. The pomp and circumstance is nice, isn't it? That little bit of Britishness that we see. But the King appeared really low energy. I think he was livid. I think he just didn't really want to be there. And you can't really blame him, can you, with all the shenanigans going on in his government? It made him look a bit foolish, talking about the plans for the future when the future is not certain for the Prime Minister. But there were lots of things in the King's speech. There was nothing very exciting. I was dismayed that digital IDs were in the King's speech, so that hasn't gone away. Even though we were assured that it had gone away. I'm livid about that because I will fight that with every breath in my body. But also, it seemed a bit... I mean, I know the King's speech isn't about direct policy. It's more about a direction of travel. There was another thing. There were bills to strengthen ties with the European Union. So I wonder how you feel about that. Are you one of those, like Paul Connew was just saying, that actually would support stronger ties with the EU? Or do you think that is, again, that is Keir Starmer selling you out? Do you feel that is? Because these are now being debated. I think they're still in the House now debating this, although they may have finished at 10 o'clock, but they were still debating in late night debates about the King's speech. So a lot of this stuff will now be debated. British Steel, we know that because he broke that in his reset speech on Monday, will be nationalised. He said a renewal of public services, clean up the water industry. Is this what you want from your government? And what did you make of the King's speech? And what do you make about the component parts of it? Do you think that he is still failing to listen to what it is that we have to say. So give me a call on that, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you. And as we know, Donald Trump is now in China, and he's expected to get the full trip from Xi Jinping from tomorrow and Friday. There's state banquets, there's all sorts of things that are being organised for this really important meeting. And it is important, it is a very important meeting for the rest of the world. This could really set relations going forward. But what's interesting about this particular meeting is that Donald Trump goes to this meeting on the back foot. He was hoping, and he delayed, if you remember earlier on this year, a meeting with Xi because he wanted the Iran war done and dusted, and he wanted to go there as the great victor. He hasn't been able to do that. In fact, it appears he's got to go a little bit cap in hand with Xi. Xi holds the Trump card. And also, there's a question of the rare earth minerals, of which 90% are under Chinese control. America needs those desperately for its tech industry. China needs more tech from America too, so there may be a deal to be done there. But the biggest thorn in the side, or the thing that Xi will want, is some concessions on Taiwan. And my feeling is he will get them from this president, because the president, we know, has taken Venezuela, he's looking at Cuba, he's looking at Greenland. That hasn't gone away, by the way, in his hemisphere. So it's unlikely that he's going to be incredibly supportive of Taiwan if China say, look, it's our imperative to retake Taiwan. So Taiwan must be considered really on edge at the moment. And to find out more about that, we're talking now to Ross Feingold, Asia political risk analyst in Taiwan. So he's actually there and will be able to tell us what the mood is in Taiwan. Ross, I'm so pleased to see you again. It has been a long time.
Thrilled to be on your show, even at 5:30 in the morning here in Taiwan.
And I so appreciate it. Gabriella, my producer, said he's going to get up at 5:30 for you, so I just genuinely appreciate it. And you look amazing on it, by the way.
Thank you.
Ross, this meeting in China must be sending a bit of a shudder down the spine of Taiwan at the moment.
The interesting thing there is, first, because this comes up every time there's a major Chinese military exercise or some significant developments in the U.S. political atmosphere, such as an election, Harris losing to Trump, for example. But it should be emphasized that day to day, the average person, and believe me, I'm very average here. People don't really tune in. They tend to tune out what's going on at the leadership level. So these things certainly don't affect people day to day. I mean, for example, Taiwan's economy is doing very, very well at the moment because of demand for semiconductors for AI that are made here in Taiwan. Taiwan's stock market is thus doing very, very well, which is making a lot of people very happy because their net worth is increasing quite dramatically. But it's also clear that people in the government are watching this, obviously. And in fact, some of them have made comments, not just in the local media, but even to global media, that they are worried or anxious. There was a deputy foreign minister who said he's concerned that Taiwan will be on the menu. I thought that was a little bit silly and cliche for a deputy foreign minister to say. And it's certainly no way to get any loving from President Trump if you say, especially if you're a small country like Taiwan, you're saying, oh, we're really worried you're going to sell us out. I mean, President Trump is not going to come running to embrace you and say, don't worry. Now, all of that being said, we often think about President Trump being immune to pressure or immune to criticism, whether that's from Congress or outside organizations like think tanks or religious organizations. But he's not totally immune to criticism or pressure. And Taiwan is certainly an issue that he hears a lot about from members of Congress, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, foreign policy experts that are in the Republican world and have access to the White House and speak to President Trump or to his team. Secretary of State Rubio, when he was in the Senate, was an outspoken critic of China and supporter of Taiwan. In fact, that's why he was blacklisted from entering China. They had to do some diplomatic acrobatics to allow Rubio to travel to China. So keeping all that background in mind, I don't think that Trump is inclined to do a so-called sellout of Taiwan, certainly not on this trip. On the weapons sales, his administration already approved one large transaction last December. Supposedly, there's a second one that's been discussed. The parameters of what's included in that one is already been discussed between Taiwan and the United States, and it is awaiting President Trump's sign off. So it is possible that this second package could be delayed. But again, there's already a first package that he approved. It's a significant amount of money. And maybe he'll wait to approve the second package. But that doesn't mean he'll never approve it months from now.
The trouble is, Ross, is that Donald Trump, as we know, he is incredibly transactional. And right now, whether he's going to admit it or not directly, he needs help with Iran. And he needs China to talk to Iran, they already are talking to Pakistan. That he needs, and Xi would love to be seen as well as one of the peace brokers, even at the same time as delivering weapons to Iran. But still, Donald Trump is transactional, and Xi knows that. So, and he's transactional. So, if it gets to the point where he's saying, "Look, you need help with Iran. We need you to change your language towards Taiwan. Can we do a deal?" And that's what I'm talking about with Donald Trump. It's not necessarily that he'll go against it, but he is transactional. And it depends how desperate he is to get the Strait open, to back out of Iran before his own political battle in November. So that's where the transactions come in. And that's where I think Xi and China are very much thinking that Taiwan is something they can negotiate, they can use as negotiation over the Iran war.
Yeah, well, for Trump in the political battle, I look at that as beginning a few weeks from now, basically in June. especially with the, what we call in America the summer travel season, as kids are out of school and families go on holiday. And if families have to pay a lot more for gas at gas stations in America when they're traveling to our national parks and our amusement parks and things like that, then it's certainly going to hurt Trump and the Republicans in the election. So he's got to worry about that soon. A few weeks ago, I would have said it's not that time yet because it would have been in March or April. But now he really does need the
Yeah.
war to wrap up. Will China put pressure on Iran? I'm skeptical that they would do that. I do think, and you mentioned this, I do think the U.S. in these talks will make it very clear to Iran, we have zero tolerance for you sending any weapons or ammunition at this time to Iran. And of course, China is going to deny that they do that,
Yeah, of
and the
course.
U.S. is going to say, but we have intelligence that you do. And then China will say, oh, well, those are electronic parts. They're dual use. We don't know what the Iranians are actually doing with those chips or other electronic gear, and they'll come to no agreement. But I do think the U.S. will make it very, very clear that there is zero tolerance for any weapons transfers to Iran. Now, you mentioned something else, which is the language. And from the Chinese side, they certainly would like Trump to say something like the U.S. opposes Taiwan independence.
Yeah.
Now, typically, the U.S. will say we don't support it, and the U.S. will avoid saying we oppose it. And for the Chinese government, that's a big deal. For the Taiwan government, that might be a big deal as well. But you know what? My view is for President Trump, that's not a big deal. It's some wording. And believe me, if he were to say that, if he were to say, yeah, we oppose Taiwan independence, minutes later, his staff are going to say there's no change to policy, and they're going to cite this long list of documents that are the foundation of U.S. China-Taiwan principles, going back to the joint communiques issued in the 70s when Nixon went to China. This U.S. law called the Taiwan Relations Act,
Yeah.
which obligates the U.S. to sell weapons to Taiwan. So if Trump were to say something like that? Because he thinks it'll make Xi Jinping happy. Yeah, it's possible. But again, I think afterwards his aides are going to say there's been no change in our policy at all. And the same thing happened with President Biden. He said multiple times that the U.S. would send troops to defend Taiwan. And minutes later, his staff were frantically telling the media there's been no change to U.S. policy because actually the U.S. has no obligation. There's no treaty obligation to send troops to defend Taiwan.
And Trump wouldn't be the president to do that anyway, would he?
Well, we simply don't know. I mean, his inclination has been to avoid foreign, as they say in America, foreign entanglements. But he's shown a willingness to do that with Iran, obviously.
Yeah.
But would he want to send literally tens of thousands of Americans to defend Taiwan with a very high risk of casualties? We just don't know.
Ross, thank you for getting up. I hope you can go back to bed now, although you're probably busy. But thank you so much. It's been a real joy to see you. Ross Feingold there, Asia political risk analyst in Taiwan. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and time to talk about the BBC. The BBC is navigating a high-stakes transition as the 2027 charter renewal looms. So it's December 2027 that they've got to have a new charter. Recent government discussions have intensified around a potential streaming levy, which could force users of platforms like Netflix or Disney Plus or any of the others that you have to pay the £180 licence fee. Currently, of course, you only have to pay that if you use the BBC or you watch anything live. So if you watch Netflix live, if they've got a sporting event, you should, by rights, have a TV licence, right? But if you don't do any of that, you don't need the TV licence. Outgoing BBC Director General Tim Davie, who's going to be replaced by Matt Britton from Monday, has maintained that a unified digital strategy is the only path to survival against US tech giants. So the unified digital strategy means charging you to use these digital platforms. This shift would look at transforming the licence fee into a modern subscription hybrid, ensuring the corporation remains the UK's primary cultural cornerstone nationally. So how do you feel about that? Matthew Lesh joins me now, Public Policy Fellow at the Institute of Economic Affairs and Country Manager at Freshwater Strategy. Matthew, good to meet you. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
These streaming giants are fuming about this. They're absolutely livid that the BBC is looking to charge people for using their platforms.
Yeah, and I think rightfully so. The BBC licence fee is already a regressive tax that doesn't really make much sense in the modern world, since we can already access a plethora of news and current affairs services from other sources. What this does is very much double down on that outdated model and even go further by saying, even if you don't use the services provided by the BBC, you'll still be required to pay. Now imagine, by comparison here, imagine if Sainsbury's shoppers were required to pay for Tesco for some reason. It doesn't really make any sense.
It doesn't
whatsoever.
It literally doesn't, and that's what I find so extraordinary about even the concept of this idea. That is just a tax, then, isn't it? That just becomes a tax on everybody in this country. For whatever they do with a screen.
Yeah, it's effectively an admission of failure from the BBC that they can't convince enough people to fund the service and use the service. And they've seen a significant decrease in the number of subscribers to the BBC over recent years as people are using the plethora of content streaming services available. And rather than, I suppose, trying to make the BBC more appealing, make it a service people want to watch, and make sure it's a financially sustainable and successful organisation, instead of going the opposite direction, saying, well, we're not going to worry about that, we're just going to make more people pay for us instead. I don't think that's particularly fair or reasonable. I mean, we already understand the fact the licence fee is the most regressive tax, because it's a poll tax. Everyone, more or less, who has a TV and connects that to the antenna has to pay for it. That means no matter your income, you're basically paying this quite significant amount of money. It's a very outdated model, but the whole public service broadcasting model maybe made sense 50, 60, 70 years ago, of course, when there wasn't much option. But just the fact that we're talking here today on an alternative TV channel, I mean, shows that news and current affairs can be provided by all sorts of different people in all sorts of different ways, and the BBC doesn't. It's not a natural monopoly like it was historically that justified the existence of the licence fee in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, people who are watching this or listening to this, for example, could choose to go to the BBC, but they haven't. They've chosen to come here to catch up on what's going on in the world, and that would be like charging them for doing that. Charge them for listening and watching Talk.
Yeah, everyone else in the market has to compete on their own ground. You have to convince people to listen to talk or read your newspaper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the other part this I think is also acknowledged is so the people make an argument there's certain necessary functions of the BBC, and that may well be the case. There may be some, for example, the World Service in Persian. Maybe it may be a public good or something that we want to fund, perhaps from direct taxation. But it's worth noting that the BBC's impact on the news and current affairs landscape is anti-competitive in itself. It's not coincidental that the BBC are the only ones doing a lot of local news, or because they can fund it and no one else can compete with the extent of funding. So it makes it very hard for other providers to get into the local news game. If the BBC had to compete again, you potentially see alternative entrants coming into a lot of areas where the BBC does do good work.
Well, I mean, just the BAFTAs, Matthew. We saw Netflix winning, we saw Apple winning. These people are making the dramas now. The BBC not. They're not doing the same job as the Netflix and even the Amazons. The money that they're throwing at dramas now, and they're the ones winning the awards. So of course people are going to go to those streamers and pay to use those streamers and be advertised at in some of those streamers as well as paying, because that's their choice to do so.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the BBC needs to ask itself, what is it for? And this is where it really struggles to give an answer. If it's for that kind of mass market drama and entertainment, well, we know that there's so many other places you can get that from. That the BBC, of course, does some very good work in that space. No one would deny that there's good BBC television shows. But if that's what it's for, and it's for that mass market purpose, it probably is a commercially viable project. If it's for the other part of the BBC, if it's for news and current affairs, or what is its purpose there? Is there a market failure to justify it? Maybe in some limited areas there would be, potentially, but for the most part, it's hard to see that we're under with the extent of 24-hour news channels, podcasts, the absolute proliferation of content creators in the news and media space. Even the most things that were considered extremely kind of mundane and boring BBC coverage, like its history shows. You've got podcasts like The Rest is History providing that kind of a service without the BBC funding. So it doesn't seem like it has a particularly well-defined purpose in a modern context or well-defined justification.
It's interesting, isn't it, that they're looking at other things as well. It seems to have been ruled out that the BBC should turn to an advertising model because there's concern that there's not enough advertisers around and that it would impact Channel 4, Channel 5, ITV, those advertisers. But they're also looking at charging for radio. If you use radio, you'll have to pay the license fee, and so far that has not happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see how that's going to particularly, meaningfully impact on their financials. You would expect most people who listen to BBC Radio are probably also TV license holders. I think in the longer run, the BBC actually probably needs to think a bit wider and a bit broader if it's going to be successful. I'm not sure it is sustainable to have the BBC license fee and charge it universally whether or not you use the service. If the BBC is going to be successful, it's actually probably going to be internationally. It's going to be appealing to the hundreds of millions of English language speakers all over the world and selling them a product that they want to buy, having subscription services a bit like Netflix or Amazon Prime. It's going to be being an effective player in that global market rather than being dependent on domestic requirements in the UK. I think rejigging its model in that direction is probably going to make the BBC a sustainable organisation. It's not going to be sustainable politically or justifiable in its current model. So I think just kind of begging for special pleading, which is effectively what the BBC is doing by saying, well, even if you watch Netflix, you should pay for us anyway. That might work for now with the current government, but in the longer run, they need to have their own revenue sources. They need to be their own business. Yeah,
I mean, I still don't get my head around why, if somebody uses Netflix, they have to pay the BBC. It literally makes no sense at all. The other thing they're thinking about is to have different price structures for different incomes. So poorer households will pay less, richer households will pay more. I mean, this sounds like it's going to be a very expensive thing for them to do. A universal charge is much easier to implement, as we know. Again, it sounds very desperate, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, they're trying to deal with the bad press that comes along with the BBC licence fee. The BBC licence fee is pretty unique. there aren't many, or really can't think of any other taxes that you pay as a poll tax. Of course, what brought down Thatcher was a poll tax.
Yeah.
This idea that everyone should have to pay something. Now, there probably are arguments for certain poll taxes, that you don't want to, maybe everyone does need to make a contribution. What's weird about this is it's a poll tax for a service. It's something that everyone's expected to pay, and in fact, they want more people to pay whether or not they use it. So it doesn't really add up very much. So I can kind of understand them saying, well, we want to increase the fairness of the way we're doing this. Wouldn't be completely unreasonable, but I think the way to do that practically is probably it's council tax, and the government would be hesitant about putting an increase in everyone's council tax in order to fund the BBC and doing it methodologically that way. And then other than that, it's very hard for kind of a third-party organisation to start determining what everyone's incomes are.
Well, yeah, that's the point, isn't it? That it would have to start being put on council tax or general taxation in order for them to make sure that they got that money, wouldn't it? In that regard.
Yeah,
because it'd be too difficult otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think practically speaking, that have to have a completely different type of funding model. Now, it is worth noting in other countries, of course, public service broadcasting is just directly funded by the government. In Australia, for example, the ABC is just funded by a grant from the government. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the model they want either, because again, you become very dependent on the government of the day and what the kind of revenue they're going to provide to you. And some governments might be more sympathetic and increase your funding, but other governments with different political stripes will decrease your funding, and your actual kind of political independence then is limited.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And something we haven't talked about here too much, of course, is just the bias that we see from the BBC. We had a whole scandal, of course, the reason why the head of BBC News, as well as the Director General of the BBC, stood down recently, was over concerns about their using current affairs coverage.
I just like you, I just can't see how it's going to continue unless it persuades us that we want it. Good to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining me. Matthew Lesh there, Public Policy Fellow at the Institute of Economic Affairs and Country Manager at Freshwater Strategy. Stay where you are. Vincent Moss is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you, and coming up in an hour's time it is your chance to talk back, and we've got to look at the King's speech and what you thought of that and what you thought of the direction of this government as it is at the moment, and potential challenges from Wes Streeting tomorrow, and Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband, he reckons he's got the numbers to mount a challenge himself. I find that really difficult to believe, but anyway. But the King's speech, the stuff that was in the King's speech, there will be bills to strengthen the ties with the European Union. Do you support that? Do you think that that's the right way to go? Also, a renewal of public services, all of it a bit wishy-washy, but they're debating it at the moment. Clean up the water industry, establish Great British Railways, they're on the agenda as well. And also back on the agenda is the digital ID. And I thought that had been nixed. I thought that they'd got rid of that, but no, it's back, and it's on it's now policy decision. It's now something they are going to try and achieve. There'll be lots of debates about it, but that is the direction that this government, your government, wants to take you in. Do you support it? What do you think was missing from the King's speech as well? Nothing about small boats, nothing about smashing the gangs, nothing about welfare, the welfare bill, which we know now is completely unaffordable. Nothing, I think, about what you are worried about and the message that you sent last week with your votes. So I'd just be interested to know what you thought about it, or maybe you didn't think about it, but I can give you all the details a little bit later on. So we will be discussing that at midnight. I'd love you to give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. I thought the King looked really fed up. I thought he looked really annoyed. And I think he's probably furious that he's been dragged into the quagmire of politics. He really didn't put any energy or effort behind it. If you consider him today at the King's speech compared to what he was like in America, he looked 30 years older. He looked like he was really slumped on the throne. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there at all, I have to be honest with you. And I think that was probably a minor protest from the King, who didn't put any energy into delivering that at all. He might as well have been reading a shopping list, that's my opinion anyway. Well, joining me to discuss that and the papers, Vincent Moss, former political editor. Good to see you.
Hi, Petrie.
The King today, very low compared to how he spoke in Congress, right? And to the Americans, and that it was very
flat, wasn't it?
Very flat.
I think there is a rule, of course, which is he has to do it in a monotone way because he can't sound like he actually supports or endorses any of the government's legislation plans. So there is that element. But clearly he would expect in a normal year to be on the front pages everywhere, and he's not, because the Westminster psychodrama is everywhere. It's all about Wes Streeting, the expected challenger, Keir Starmer in crisis, and the King is really nowhere. So yes, he would not, in a perfect world, I'm sure he'd like this to have not happened, or certainly not happened at the same time. So yes, you're right, he did look very flat and uninterested and didn't want to be there.
Yeah, he really did. You know, and I've seen many King's speeches, and this one felt like it was like, what have you done to me? But this was done deliberately, wasn't it? This King's speech was timed to happen today, just after the local elections, in which Keir Starmer knew he was going to get a drubbing. He knew that this was going to be, he wanted this to happen today.
He did, because he knew, as you say, that the May 7th council elections were going to be dreadful everywhere. They were. Labour lost about 1,500 seats, Reform on the rise, Greens on the rise. So this was a chance for the Keir Starmer and the government to reassert their authority, show we got loads of plans. And in fact, 38 bits of legislation. It's a huge amount to get through in 3 years. I think only Tony Blair and Boris Johnson have come up with more bills at this point in the cycle. So an awful lot of stuff there. And it's really Keir Starmer saying, look, I'm here, I'm still in charge, I'm still running the show. But I think people look at the King's speech and think, how does it affect me in the cost of living crisis?
Yes.
And of all those bits of legislation, a lot of stuff about growth, a lot of stuff about energy, a lot of stuff about all sorts of things. But when it comes to your pocket, really, possibly some of the energy legislation might lower bills, but there's really very little else there in terms of, obviously it's not a taxation raising bill, but people will just think, does this make me better or worse off? And there's very little in there that really changes that.
Well, I think that's the point of this government as well. It's tone deaf. There are a lot of people in this country at the moment that have seen their bills going up. They only ever go one direction, don't they? Even if you don't have a car, you're aware of prices going up. And everybody, I think everybody, apart from the very, very rich, are aware, right, that we're feeling the pinch. You know, just even with my shopping every week, trying to stick to 50 quid. I got one basket last week delivered. You know, there's barely anything in there. No meat, nothing expensive, but still there was barely anything in that basket. And I'm trying to stick to that budget because I want to see what happens to my money, because that's a good indicator of being aware of what's going on. And everybody's feeling that, but this King's speech felt really tone deaf to that. It felt tone deaf to normal people's worries about normal things. Like I just mentioned there was nothing about doing something about the welfare budget, which everybody is feeling that we know now that it's higher than income tax is coming in. I mean, that's only one of the taxes that the government gets, but still, the welfare bill is bigger than the income tax intake. And people probably wanted to hear about the small boats, and there was nothing in there. There was nothing about, not even the trite smashing the gangs. It just felt like it didn't speak to the people of this country, that it wasn't about us at all.
Yeah, and that's a real problem, because one of the things you hear from pollsters all the time is when they do focus groups, the thing that keeps coming back is people feel that they're playing by the rules, working hard, really struggling, and that other people are gaming the system and just trying to scam various benefits and things. Now, lots of people are genuinely in need, but quite a few people, the perception is, aren't. And then the reason the government can't do anything on that is the government did try to change welfare reform. Rachel Reeves famously tried to make some headway there, not even to cut the bill, but to slow the rate of growth on that bill, and was thwarted by Labour backbenchers. So there is no chance of the government being able to get really any significant welfare reforms through. That's why it wasn't in the King's speech. But that's a real problem, because it's a huge spending area, and if you want to spend money somewhere else, you have to look at changes to the welfare budget, whether that's personal independence payments, whether it's the triple lock on pensions, which obviously many pensioners would oppose, but that's a huge issue with intergenerational wealth, because many young people look at that and think, wow, that's not going to be around when I retire, and yet all these old people are now doing quite well. And that wasn't always the case. We were very behind Europe when it came to pensions, and we've got a little bit up to the mid-table now, mainly because of the triple lock. But there's another area that could be cut. But you're right, when it came to cost of living, very little, if anything, in the King's speech addressed that, and it won't really dispel people's view of, OK, you're still in charge for now, Keir Starmer, but you're not really changing the things that we tell you we want you to listen to.
Yeah, and that's, I think that has always been his problem. A lot of people are saying he's always been in this bubble. You know, I mean, even the woeful speech, this reset speech on Monday with his shirt sleeves rolled up, I mean, just so trite, wasn't it? Oh, take your jacket off, roll your sleeves up. It's pathetic. Like we're idiots, like we fall for a visual, you know, trick like that. Honestly, I can't bear the way they treat us. They're like we're stupid. But that was pathetic and woeful as well. It just doesn't listen. He just doesn't hear what's going on. I mean, if he does hear it, he dismisses it. He's not interested. He thinks he knows better. And I think that's why the country sent that bloody nose to him last week, him and his government. And I've yet to hear many of them take responsibility for that election last week. It's not just about Keir Starmer, it's about what they're doing as well.
Well, exactly. And the party's really split on how you change things, because
they're totally split.
Is it just about he's not very good at telling the story? And there are some good news stories around.
Yeah, he's done some good stuff.
In the Home Office, Shabana Mahmood has cut, for example, the asylum backlog in half. The number of small boats still massive, but it's down by a third. There are changes that are improving. Until the Iraq crisis, the inflation numbers were going in the right direction. They're not anymore. There were things that were starting to improve. but he wasn't really getting that message across. But there are some people that say it's not just the messenger, it's also we need to change what we're doing, and that what they keep referring to as incremental change that Keir Starmer seems to favour is not good enough, and we need some really big changes. Well, the only big changes I can think of usually involve spending an awful lot of money, which gets you back to your tax and spend.
Or making lots of cuts.
Exactly. Gets you back to where's that money going to come from. If you're not prepared to tackle welfare, which people who want to spend more will need to find money from somewhere, and bear in mind you've still got this big pressure to spend more on defence. Now, a lot of the left of the party won't want to see that as a priority if they're coming in and supporting a challenger like the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, who's desperately trying to get back in so he can be a part of a future contest. So if it's a left wing or a candidate, potentially left of the party like Angela Rayner, they will want to spend money, if you like, and where are they going to get that?
Well, they're going to have to borrow it, which is why the bond market has gone into, you know, it's the most expensive yields that we've seen in years, because there is a concern that Labour is going to have to, well, if they want to see off reform and the Greens, who are polar opposites, where do you fall? Now, my view would be you fall in the middle, because there are votes in the middle that are not being heard, right? I think the majority of people in this country are pretty much in the middle, are left on some things, right on the other. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to find a Blair candidate. They're going to go for either, I think they're going to pull much more to the left, which will see more taxation, more borrowing and more spending, which, again, I don't think the country has the appetite for.
No, all of that's right, because the Labour Party, in terms of even the parliamentary party, let alone the membership of the party, veers towards the left. In fact, Keir Starmer was elected on very much a left-wing platform because he knew he had to win over the base.
He was mates with Corbyn,
exactly,
wasn't he?
And he had to spoken a very Corbynist almost agenda, but he's trimmed to the right now, probably on the advice of his departed advisor Morgan McSweeney, because they needed to court, as the government saw it, the reform voters who were drifting away. But in reality, what we saw at the local elections is, yes, Reform picked up a lot of seats, but in terms of potential Labour voters, they hemorrhage votes towards the Greens. So it's exactly what you said. There's a threat on both fronts, and the party's struggling to look both ways at the same time. And a lot of people in the party now are arguing, well, actually forget the Reform threat, because those are people we can't win over. I think somebody was talking earlier potentially about only 2% of those Reform voters might come across to Labour. But you might get a third, as much as a third of the Green vote. So let's go after the Green vote, potentially the Lib Dem vote, even disaffected Conservatives, and go after that vote. So the party's got to make a decision fairly quickly about what it wants to be.
And that is the major problem, isn't it? Which is going to send the government into turmoil, and nothing is going to get done in this country, because the Labour Party doesn't even know what it is. It really doesn't. So it doesn't know who to vote for. So is it going to go for Wes Streeting, who's more to the right? Probably not. Is it going to go for Ed Miliband, of all people? They've already tried that. That didn't really work, did it? Or are they going to wait and take, fingers crossed, for Andy Burnham? Because there is no such thing as a safe seat anymore. We've seen that with Reform and the Greens taking the last by-election in Manchester, Gorton and Denton by-election. Are they going to risk it all and wait for Burnham?
Well, that's a real challenge, because
a huge problem.
One, Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, has got to find a safe seat, if there is such a thing. Reform did very well in his Manchester heartlands. Now, Andy Burnham would say he's popular and he could get in, but even an 8,000 or 10,000 seat majority, as some of those seats are, might not be enough. And in 1964, Labour tried this a long time ago. I think it was Harold Wilson. He wanted to get somebody in as, I think, Foreign Secretary, and they tried to line up a safe seat, and it was a very safe seat. I think it was in North London. Couldn't get it because the public said, we're not going to wear this. So even if Andy Burnham could find a seat and perhaps promise the incumbent a seat in the House of Lords or something, might work. He might not win the seat, but even if that happens, the timetable is probably a minimum 6 to 12 weeks. It has to be proved by Labour's ruling NEC committee, who blocked him, let's remember, last time from standing in the Gorton and Denton by-election.
From Keir Starmer's advice.
Exactly. So there's a lot of things that have to happen. There's a lot of Labour members and a lot of Labour MPs that would like Andy Burnham to be running in the contest, represents a lot of their values to the left of the party. But for him to run, it means the psychodrama will go on and on and on.
Drag on and on and on. That's the last thing we need, right? I mean, with global issues, the Strait of Hormuz, they're now talking about food shortages and starvation in lots of countries. So this is a massive problem, and they're going to be sending post-it notes to each other and playing favourites for a seat on the front benches if you vote for me, or like you said, a position in the Lords if you step down for me, and they don't care about us. Nothing's getting done.
Well, very much so. And if you're a cabinet minister who may well enter the race, like Ed Miliband at Energy or Shabana Mahmood at the Home Office, are you going to take any unpopular decisions that might impact your chances of becoming the next Prime Minister? So you've got that going on all the time as well. So it's going to be very hard to get things done at a critical time for the country. And that doesn't bode well for the economy or for many of the things, the 37 bits of legislation that were in the King's speech.
But even if Keir Starmer does hang on in there, we know he's vindictive, right? He is going to go after the 190 odd people who have asked him to resign, sign that letter and asked him to resign. There's going to be a cabinet reshuffle. Shabana Mahmood's probably out. You know, it's going to be chaos in that regard as well, while we sit around waiting for them to learn their brief and get back on the job.
Yeah, and Keir Starmer,
every which way you look at this, it's a mess.
It is, and Keir Starmer could still be around for 3 years. John Major famously gave a Rose Garden speech in 1995 when he said to his critics, put up or shut up.
Yeah.
In the end, John Redwood, famous Tory grandee now, did run, didn't win, and John Major stuck around for another 2 years until he was ousted at the 1997 landslide Tony Blair victory. So it's not inconceivable that while in many people's view Keir Starmer's a sort of on the way out, definitely going, there will be a new Prime Minister or a new leader, Labour may be there potentially for several months, potentially even several years. I think it's likely, very likely, there'll be a new Labour leader
for the next election. I absolutely agree.
But what time that happens is anybody's guess.
It's anybody's guess, and he could just cling on in there. He said he's not going. He's going to make this as ugly and as chaotic as he possibly can. And I had a message yesterday, which I didn't get a chance to read out, saying, from Ali. I remember it, Ali. Thank you for the message. Saying, Keir Starmer's obviously said that he'll call a snap election unless people get behind him.
Well, that's...
I mean, that would be... He could.
He could, but where they are in the polls... Yes, exactly. I think if you look at the polls...
if he wanted to be vindictive, if he wanted to be nasty, he said, right, OK, you want it this way?
He could do that, and lots of people would support that, not least his opponents. But elections only called usually by incumbents when they think they've got the best chance of winning them. And there's no chance of Labour winning it now.
But would he care if he was out?
Yes, I think he would care enough to try and not. So yes, and I think once you're Prime Minister...
Maybe I'm thinking that I would do it. If I'm not the boss, then you can all
No, exactly, yes,
off.
exactly.
I'll give you a snap election and let's see how you like that. I just thought it was a great comment. Right, we've got to take a quick break, but Vincent and I'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me is Vincent Moss, and we're looking at the front pages now. I was just saying to Vincent there, this photograph of Wes Streeting there, he looks like an android, doesn't he? He looks like a robot.
Yes, he's very well turned out, isn't he?
His eyes are like, yeah, very strange.
Good moisturiser as well, I think.
Good moisturiser. No neck.
Not in that picture.
No neck.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this is Street Fighter. Wes to quit and launch leadership bid. Defiant PM. He must not win. Ed, Andy and Ange to join the battle. He's got to have 81 people, hasn't he? It's 20% now that they have to have since 2021, where it was 10%. So he's got to have that. He must be confident he's got the numbers to mount that challenge. But will it just be a head-to-head with Keir Starmer?
Well, exactly, in which case he might lose. And the fascinating thing about the Parliamentary Labour Party is, to put it, how can I put this politely, they're not perhaps the most trustworthy of electorate when they're consulted on who they're going to support.
Yeah.
So he may well have 81 or ideally 85 or 90 pledges of support, but they may melt away if something else emerges.
They've got to go really public. You know,
yes,
and
they have
also
to be public.
They have to be public. They have to be known to Keir Starmer. They have to make that pledge very publicly. And like you said, a lot of them, they abstain from votes because they don't want people to know what they're thinking. The idea that all of those people are going to stick with it and do it, I'm with you. I'm sceptical about that. I think they're cowards.
Exactly. So I think you'll only know he's definitely in the race when he's actually in the race and he's got the numbers. But of course there are other people who want to enter. As we keep saying, Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, keen to enter, but massive problem of not having a parliamentary seat. That needs to change for him. And former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who we don't know for sure, but we think she hasn't resolved the tax issue she faces with the HMRC over the £40,000 she owes on the seaside flat in Brighton that she bought.
Yeah,
now, if that's resolved, she could enter.
I also think that the public wouldn't be happy with that. You know, we are sick and tired of these politicians filling their pockets or not paying the right thing, you know, and not paying their council tax or not paying their stamp duty or getting £5 million and not declaring it and not paying their full tax bills, like Nadine Zahawi, and that was another 5 million, wasn't it?
Huge amount.
Yeah. It's kind of like, stop preaching to us. Stop, you know, making freelancers do their books every 3 months now. And all of those, stop making us pay in advance. You know, the fact that I have to pay tax before I've earned a penny is absolutely ludicrous to me. But, you know, we're all sick and tired of that. And I think that Angela Rayner is still on the naughty step. I think the public, we're not going to go, oh, that's all right then, we've just moved on from that, even if she does pay it back.
Yes, and she's very much, seems to be two schools of thought about whether she will actually enter the race or whether she'd like to be a queenmaker, kingmaker
with Andy
Burnham and support his campaign.
And get a big job from that.
Exactly, to get on well. And it may be, and that's what it's going to come down at the end of the day, is there are going to be alliances formed and people will coalesce. You might find 6, 7, 8 names at the early stages of this race, and that's why Wes Streeting is being so talked about, is his interest for a quick and early contest, because he needs to get this in his mind over and done before Andy Burnham can re-enter the House of Commons and join the race. Now, Andy Burnham's supporters obviously want a longer contest because they want their man to join the race. Yeah. So one of the first battles isn't about who enters the race, it's about when the race starts and when the race ends.
Well, it's almost as well that if they don't mount it tomorrow, the momentum's already slowing down, right? It's all, people are bored of this already, and it is a case now, isn't it, that he's always got to do it tomorrow, because any later and it's too late. You've missed the boat, haven't you? You're never gonna, not going to happen for you.
Absolutely, and the Machiavellian nature of politics is such that enemies of Wes Streeting will brief that he's going to do it, because if it doesn't work for him, then when he doesn't do it, they can use the phrase they always like using, which is he bottled it.
He Portillo'd it.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Michael Portillo bottled it, didn't he?
That's right. For older listeners and viewers who remember the days of phone lines, he very famously had borrowed a house near the House of Commons, and he'd installed phone lines ready to challenge John Major, so the story goes, and the phone lines were in but he bottled it and didn't go at the last moment. That's why journalists knew, is because the phone lines have been installed. At least it's easier these days. You don't have to install phone lines. You don't have
to do that. But yeah, it is. It'll be interesting tomorrow to see if Wes does it. But like we were saying earlier, because the party doesn't know who it is, it's so divided. How are they going to get behind somebody who's on the right of the party? The unions won't support that, will they?
No, and they also face the problems that each MP has got their own constituency activists.
Yeah.
A lot of them will face small majorities, and although the election might be a way off, they'll be under pressure from their own party activists to support a particular candidate. So most party activists on the left of the party, again, they would probably want to get in behind Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband or Andy Burnham. So there'll be some that do support Wes Streeting, but there'll be many constituency Labour parties that don't. So it's a whole messy world
really
of
is
Labour
messy,
internal
because
politics.
Labour doesn't know who it is, and that is the thing, I think, again, that Reform has the winning hand. It is unapologetically what it is. They're all singing from the same song sheet. It may not be a song sheet that any of us like or everybody likes, but it's the same message. It's the same song sheet. There is no division in Reform, is there? There's none. And there appears to be none in the Greens. And increasingly, the Tories seem to be on the same side now as well. Whereas with Labour, it is... They're so divided, and the extremes in the party just make it look like it doesn't know what it stands for.
Yeah, and it's a very bad time for it because it's heading in lots of different directions.
Yeah, yeah.
But scrutiny will always be on the ruling party, Labour in this case. But I mean, in any other time, the sort of £5 million donation to Reform's Nigel Farage from a crypto king in Thailand would be a massive story. But to some extent, one of the reasons why Reform doesn't get as much pressure as, for example, Keir Starmer got over his freebie glasses and suits, I have to say we had a huge fuss about, look rather small now compared to the £5 million that went to Nigel Farage. But to some extent, there's always a view with Nigel Farage, well, he's that sort of character, isn't he? And he's always... unapologetically is what he is.
The same slack was cut for Boris, wasn't it?
Yes. And I think with Labour, the problem that they faced, especially Keir Starmer, is they did say we won't be like them.
Yeah.
And that's why people are annoyed, is because Labour said it was going to be different when it came to that kind of stuff. And a lot of those elements like the Angela Rayner tax story and the Keir Starmer freebies annoyed people because they thought it was going to be different. Whereas in a way, it's kind of priced in with Nigel Farage. I mean, in some ways, you'd be surprised if he wasn't getting lots of money from crypto donors.
Yeah, I agree. I think that people think, well, that's just him. That's just what happens. But like I said, there is a cohesive message from Reform, and they bang the same drum, and that has an appeal on its own.
But on a limited number of policies, really. They've got a very strong message on one of the most important policies in terms of small boats and migration. But they do start to rather fall apart in certain other areas when it comes to their economic policy, and where they have taken over local authorities and did very well at. They've struggled in some cases because they've gone in and saying, we're going to cut your council tax bills, we're going to save money, it was on the leaflets. And they've got in and found out that actually a lot of the money's committed to certain things like social care for old people, social care for young kids and stuff. There's not much you can do with that because they're statutory things that councils have to pay for. And despite making promises to cut council tax bills...
They put them up.
Exactly.
They put them up, didn't they? I'm just trying to think what the markets would do with a Burnham-Rayner ticket.
Looks like it wouldn't be good, although there was famously, I think, one Labour MP in the last few days who said, well, the bond markets are just going to have to get into line, which shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how the city and finance works.
I mean, of course, they're very concerned that a Burnham ticket would mean huge amounts of borrowing in order to fulfil all the spending that they want to achieve.
Yeah, and extra spending on welfare and more borrowing, and that, while you may support extra welfare spending in certain areas, has to be paid for. And if the markets are unconvinced that you've got the money, then that is very, very bad news.
We don't have the intake to cover those debts. It's like I keep saying, interesting times. We've got to take a quick break, but Vincent, I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening. This is Talk. I'm Petrie, and the wonderful Vincent Moss is in the studio with me, former political editor, going through the papers. The Times again, Streeting prepares to quit ahead of the number 10 challenge. In fact, every paper, let's just say, like you said, not featuring the King. But let's have a look at a couple of the news in brief at the bottom there, the nibs. This story is really tragic, and is the Brighton sea tragedy, where the bodies of 3 young women have been recovered from the sea off Brighton. Their estimated ages are between 20 and 30. They haven't been identified. Yeah, they may have been by now, but I haven't seen any identification. But they're certainly not identified in the paper here. They apparently entered the water after a drunken night out.
Yeah, incredibly sad. And
so sad.
The fact it's happened to 3 people. I mean, Brighton's a big, busy nightlife town. I mean, I know it. I grew up not far from there. But what people don't realise is the beach down to the waves is really steep, and the waves are really strong. It is not one of those gentle beaches where the waves sort of gently lap.
And it's very stony, isn't it? It's not sandy, if you don't know it, and the stones are quite big. So if you're wearing, I don't know if these young women were wearing heels, but if you're wearing heels, I mean, we don't know what happened yet, but it sounds to me like somebody's fallen in and the other 2 have gone to rescue, potentially. And the seas were very rough because it was very windy last night.
Yeah, exactly. And even when the seas aren't rough at Brighton, it's a pretty strong
and cold.
Yeah, exactly. And the waves are pretty big.
Yeah.
So very dangerous to be close to the shore there. And it just sounds as though, as the Times is reporting, that they'd been on a night out and somebody got into trouble, and astonishingly and tragically, sort of 3 people died.
It's so, I mean, honestly, it just doesn't bear thinking about, does it, that sort of thing. The Guardian, they're talking about Streeting on manoeuvres, ready to launch a leadership challenge. And at the bottom there, Farage faces watchdog inquiry into £5 million gift. There was also some question about a house that was bought, wasn't there? And stamp duty. Because after receiving this, his wife or girlfriend at the time bought a property and said it was from an inheritance.
Her family, that's right.
Yeah,
I think,
and it turned out that it couldn't. Her family weren't wealthy enough, or something.
Well, I think that the background was essentially that she'd bought a house in the he'd said initially he had a house in the constituency. Yeah. I think the Guardian was one of the papers that investigated. It turned out that the house was in fact in his girlfriend's name, Laura, I think it is.
Because he owns a lot of other properties,
exactly, he owns 2 or 3, maybe 4 other properties at least that we know of. And she'd bought the house for about £800,000 and said it was from her family money. But I think journalists had done some digging in France and Europe, and it turned out the family didn't appear to have the means to give her that sort of money. So as things stand, her story is that she had the money, it's her house, it's nothing to do with him. Now, if it were proven at any point, and I'm sure he would say this is very much not the case, that he was behind the money to purchase the house, then he would be liable, because it would be not his first home, he would be liable for various stamp duties and second home duties on that. So that's an area where people are still speculating about, but of course Nigel Farage says he's done nothing wrong on that. Important to say. But this £5 million gift is getting more and more serious. I mean, came up before the local elections.
Yeah.
He denied any doing anything wrong, but now it's a formal investigation. The Parliamentary Standards Watchdog is looking into it. It could refer it to the Standards Committee of MPs. Now, if they sanction him, somewhere down the line, there's a possibility he could face a recall petition, and he may have to fight for his parliamentary seat in Clacton. And usually when that happens to MPs, they lose their seat, but Nigel Farage is such a unique case that if he was forced to run again, he may well hold on to it.
He may well, it depends how much he's done for Clacton.
Well, they may just like him.
They may just like him.
And they may vote him, but
true.
Who knows? Yeah.
True. It could get messy. It could get messy for him. The Metro has gone with West's Prime Minister. There's been quite a lot of Malcolm clips surfacing recently about telling the Prime Minister to go. It's quite funny. So I've seen a few of those. But West Prime Minister streeting to launch challenge for Keir Starmer's job after number 10's showdown. I'm not sure it was much of a showdown, you know.
Well, it was a very short meeting, wasn't it?
Very short. Everybody keeps saying it was an espresso.
Well, it was only 16 minutes, which by the time you get through the door into his office, I would have thought that that's...
Probably 10?
Well, less than that
Less than that.
So probably didn't have time to finish the coffee.
Yeah.
I imagine it was very, very short.
And maybe it
was...
was...
A fleeting, streeting meeting, I've heard somebody call it.
That was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was like the meetings I used to have with my bosses, which was always a meeting without coffee. That was when you knew you were in trouble.
Exactly.
So maybe that's what it was.
Those, yes.
Yeah, we've all had those. A meeting without coffee. I was caught snooping through my boss's desk. Just the stuff on the top. And I said, but I'm a journalist.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was my job, to find out what was going on. But I had a meeting without coffee over that one. The Financial Times has also gone with the story about the Starmer drama. Starmer rallies Labour loyalists in a move to see off Streeting challenge. Burnham allies, as we've been saying, calling for a delay. They can't have it both ways.
No, although
maybe they went too quickly. They should have waited.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to say, though, that there are still a significant number of the 400-plus Labour MPs that at the moment still support Keir Starmer. So if there was a challenge from Wes Streeting, there's no guarantee that he would win a vote of confidence in Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer may see him off.
He really could. I mean, if it was just between the two of them, if the votes weren't divided and split, then there's a good chance that Starmer could win.
That could be the best outcome for Keir Starmer, is he faces Wes Streeting, beats him, sees him off and carries on. Whereas if he waits for a sort of more popular challenger to come in, potentially like Andy Burnham...
Well, he knows that, doesn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah, he knows that. And if there's one thing that Keir Starmer has proven to be, that is ruthless. He is ruthless. Yes. He is going to hang on in there. I think he's just arrogant enough to believe he can do it.
Yeah. A small piece there on the front of the FT worth mentioning again, but that Farage story has made it onto a little bit on the front of the FT, saying he's going to be probed over that crypto tycoon £5 million gift. So it's there. And any other time, this would be the lead story on most of the papers. But because there's so much crisis at the heart of the Labour Party and the government, that's dominating. But in quieter times, Nigel Farage would be making the front page.
Yeah, he would. And also the thing is with that crypto is that it's a policy of reform, isn't it, to become a crypto country?
Absolutely.
So that kind of makes it stinky a bit.
It very much does so, and Nigel Farage has been promoting that. And I think if it was genuinely a £5 million gift... Exactly. If it's a genuinely £5 million gift with no strings attached, fine. But I think we've all been around long enough to know that people usually expect something for their cash.
There's no such thing as a free meal. And there's no such thing as a free £5 million. I wish there was.
We'd all be after it.
Yeah, we'd all be after that. Blimey. Good headline on City AM. They're good with the headline, City AM, actually. Downing Streeting. Labour faces civil war as Wes Streeting looks to topple Starmer. The King has made it onto the front page of the Independent. He looks so fed up there. I can't bear it. He just slumped. He doesn't look very pleased at all. Streeting poised to wield the knife against Starmer. PM expresses full confidence in the Health Secretary. That was an interesting comment, wasn't it? Because didn't he say the same thing about Mandelson just before Mandelson went?
I think they have to say the full confidence thing until they go. But he's got an interesting little tap dance to do, because I think some Conservatives were suggesting that he should show strength and fire Wes Streeting before he quits. And if you're Wes Streeting, you don't really want to be fired, so you need to quit. So it's a little tap dance that's got to be worked out, and who sort of quits first, as it were. So I mean, you could argue that, but then Starmer could be seen as vindictive. Who knows? But if I was Keir Starmer, I'd be thinking, this guy's disloyal, let's just fire him.
I'd fire him. But that's the other thing, is that Wes Streeting's taking a risk here, because if he doesn't have the numbers, or those numbers melt away, as we suggested a moment ago, he's out of a big job, out of the cabinet, and he won't be back in the cabinet. We know that. So he's back to just being a lowly MP.
Well, probably, and also one with quite a marginal seat at the next election as well. I mean, yes, because you're right. Whoever gets the job, if Keir Starmer's not there and it's not Wes Streeting, are they going to give Wes Streeting a job? It depends who it is.
He's not seen as being very loyal.
Well, not at the moment. Yes, yes, exactly.
If you're looking for loyalty, you wouldn't be hiring Wes Streeting.
True, but then again, if you ruled out people on the basis of loyalty, there wouldn't be a huge amount of.
There would be no politicians, would there? They'd be all gone. Nice picture of the Queen on the. She looks fabulous.
She does.
She does look incredible.
He does look, though, the King, very unhappy. He literally really should have a speech bubble saying, "What am I doing here?" Because he does not look happy. He does.
He is hacked off, to put it bluntly. Oh, look, the Mirror. Not surprising, have gone big on the Farage story. It is the image on the front there. Farage in 5 million sleaze probe. Watchdog investigates reform chief over crypto billionaires, in inverted commas, gift. Streeting poised to look. I mean, all that Farage will do is say, and his followers will say, is, "Oh, they're coming after me for no good reason because I'm a threat to the establishment."
100%.
That's the messaging,
and that's what he'll say, and all his supporters will believe that. And it's a difficult decision for the people who are looking into this inquiry, because he says it was no strings attached. Presumably the donor will say it was no strings attached. So how they will seek to prove or find any evidence to the contrary is very hard, because like anything in life, if the two people involved insist there's nothing to see and nothing's wrong, quite a hard investigation. So unless there's an email or a document somewhere that proves it, which I probably much doubt there is,
very much doubt that.
Then he may well not be in trouble. But the Mirror, obviously a Labour supporting paper, rather than focus on the psychodrama around the Prime Minister, has focused on one of his biggest opponents in Nigel Farage. So no real surprise there.
Yeah, no real surprise. That is the defence. And just like the MAGA are trying to reframe what Donald Trump said earlier on, when he said that he didn't think about American finances at all. That wasn't a consideration of his when it came to the Iran war.
That would be career-ending if you said that sort of thing in England, wouldn't you?
Anybody else saying that? I don't think about the Americans' cost of living crisis. I don't think about their finances at all. I mean, it's absolutely... I don't know where we are, Vincent, because like you said, that would normally be... You're saying to your electorate, I don't even care. I'm not even thinking about you.
At a time when all just as we are here, their inflation, their petrol inflation is going through the roof.
They're in a right... There hasn't even really started for America yet. The next couple of months... just before the midterms, it'll be,
Yeah, and his poll ratings are really bad already, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah. But MAGA will support everything that Trump does, and the reformers will support everything that Farage does.
Yep.
They're just those leaders. They're just those people. That they instill that sort of loyalty, at least from the public, if not from the people they're standing next to at the ballot box. Vincent and I got to take a break, but we will be back in a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, it is Talk. It's Petrie, and with me, Vincent Moss, former political editor. The Daily Star has come up with a picture of the Downing Street cat looking. I don't know what they've done to that picture, but it's all lumpy. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, here we go again, because a new Prime Minister. I mean, how many Prime Ministers, seriously, has Larry the Cat seen?
I think he came in under David Cameron, so if it's going to see another one, I think he sees 7 in 10 years, which makes us look like a not serious country, doesn't it? It really does
make us look pathetic. I mean, look, I am really pleased that we have a mechanism to oust people. Because in America, for example, they don't. I mean, we've got Donald Trump, who's the least popular president since Donald Trump. And they've got there's only the 25th Amendment, right? There's no political way of ousting him at all. That's it. They're stuck. And I'm glad that we do have that. But when you look at what the Tories did, and that ridiculous mess, and the mess of Liz Truss was because, similar to what's happening here, because they didn't know who they wanted. And they didn't know where they were going. And this has got, the Liz Truss about it, is that if Wes Streeting does get elected, right, let's just say there is a challenge, Wes Streeting is the top dog, are they just going to biff him out when Andy Burnham's available?
Very possibly. Very
possibly. So we're looking at another Tory fiasco.
Although the Conservatives are famously rather good at getting rid of their leaders when they want to.
Labour's bad.
But Labour
they take a long time. They do. Theresa May, how long did that take?
Can't remember.
3 years? Something like that. But anyway, I mean, but that's the other consideration for this government or for this party, is do they really want Wes Streeting to take them into the next election? Because I think it's no. And I think that they will biff him out when Andy Burnham becomes available. So we're looking at 2 leadership elections in possibly a year and a half, and again another Prime Minister. What a mess.
Yeah, especially if the polls are not good. And traditionally they always say you get a bit of a new leader bounce going into the next election. So ideally, if you're going to change leader, you want to change it about a year before the next election, not 3 years out.
Not 3 years, because things can go downhill rapidly from there. And let's face it, whoever becomes PM now, they're not exactly picking up a full plate, right? They've got the scraps, and they've got to do something with those scraps. So if they get Wes in for a year and a half, and then go, right, Burnham's ready now, it's just like we're all just going to pack our bags and leave the country.
And is the answer to the future problems people who've failed in the past? I mean, Andy Burnham's run unsuccessfully twice, not least against Keir Starmer last time round, and Ed Miliband's unsuccessly been Labour leader as well. So I think, would the public be voting for somebody they've already rejected, if you like?
Rejected, I mean, it is potentially a mess. For poor old Larry, if it had 7 owners, can you imagine? Anyway, Downing Streeting, they've gone with that as well. The Telegraph, oh gosh, it's very difficult to read this, isn't it? The Telegraph always prints out really, really badly.
They seem to be focusing on the fact that Ed Miliband will fight Wes Streeting, don't they? And saying that the Health Secretary is expected to resign, and they've picked Miliband as person they're going to focus on, probably because the Telegraph is always very obsessed with net zero, and Ed Miliband's big champion of net zero. So he would, for their readership and their agenda, they'd be very worried about Ed Miliband, because they would see him as a sort of someone who's not prepared to go and start a bit more drilling in the North Sea and get energy bills down.
Yeah, absolutely. Starmer to force EU laws on Britain with new Henry VIII powers. How are they new if they're Henry VIII powers? I'm sure I figured
Yes, exactly. They must be very old.
They must be very old if that's the case.
I think they're suggesting again that he could force through various changes in the law on food, drink and energy by not needing a Commons vote, because you use Henry VIII powers, which are basically you can use secondary legislation to get changes in without using primary legislation, and that's something that they're looking at as part of this much talked about closer links with Europe that Keir Starmer's talked about as part of this reset.
A nice picture of Princess Catherine on the front there, who's doing a solo trip to Italy, isn't she, at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. It's her first sort of post-cancer foreign trip, and lovely picture there, and it would be in a couple of the other papers, but just not on the front pages.
Just not on the front pages. And this one is good news for me, because I never get 8 hours sleep, but more than 8 hours sleep hastens ageing. That's why I look so young, Vincent, because I don't get any sleep.
Don't get enough sleep.
I don't get any
I
sleep
could try
at
that.
all.
I think that could be the case for me too. You'd have thought that would be the opposite, though. Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I mean, Humphrey is just so naughty, and he wakes me up for a cuddle, and it's just like, how can I resist? It is just, it doesn't happen. I don't get 8 hours sleep. It's not a chance.
I don't think many people do, especially if you live in a noisy area. Something usually happens to wake you up, whether it's the dustmen or foxes or dogs or...
Yeah, it's the dogs for me. It's both of them, and the cat sometimes joins in as well, jumps on my head. So I don't get 8 hours, but that's a good thing because it'll prevent me from ageing, apparently.
Yes.
Which I don't believe for a moment. So yeah, there's most of the stories all to do with the politics of the day. The Daily Mail, no different. Streeting to ignite Labour Day of anarchy. Love a bit of hyperbole, don't they? The Mail, they love a bit of that. Health Secretary to resign, challenged the PM. Miliband and Rayner ready to oppose him. Starmer pleads with his MPs to stay loyal. Burnham poised for a launch his comeback. What a mess. And Kemi Badenoch was good today, actually, wasn't she?
Yeah, she had a very good performance responding to the King's speech, and particularly sort of had a few pokes at the chaos, and also at Wes Streeting, and accused him
get on with your job.
Get on with your job, yeah.
Well, I mean, to be frank with you, that's what all of us want them to do, and that is the problem with these things, is that they're just not doing the job that we are paying them handsomely to do. They're just not doing it. They're concentrating on themselves.
Yeah, and that's likely to be the case probably for a few months.
At a time where we're heading into chaos and crisis over fuel and food.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, seriously, this is the wrong time for it. And actually, a lot of my callers last night were saying, look, Starmer should probably stay on during this time, just because of the chaos that's heading our way. It's better the devil you know.
Well, exactly. People are thinking, if those that can afford a holiday, are thinking, can I safely book a European, much looked forward to trip of the year? With what's going on with the jet fuel crisis, and yet all these people are squabbling over who wears the crown in the Labour Party.
I know, and it really is boring, and we did totally have enough of that with the Tories. It just was beyond a joke, wasn't it? It really was. The iPaper again, Streeting set to resign. We're going to look a bit foolish if he doesn't, but Streeting is set to resign and will challenge PM. And Burnham will also attempt to join the contest, but he can't. I mean, he can't until he's been elected as an MP. So it doesn't matter if somebody steps down. Like you said, it takes months. So it's going to take a long time to set up a by-election.
Yeah, and the Eye is speculating that Andy Burnham has found a seat, but it says it might not be winnable.
Of course not. There's no guarantees.
That's a big problem. Yeah.
That is a big risk. We're no longer a two-party country, and reform will throw everything at a seat. And like you said as well, that a lot of people go, no, we're not playing that game with you. We're not going to let you play that game. No, you can't have Andy Burnham. And the electorate are so hacked off at the moment, they're likely to do that. I would, in the local area. I'd vote monster raving loony. Say, no, you can't take us for mugs like this. You can't shoehorn in somebody you want. That's not the point.
Yeah, he ideally would want a massive seat with a Labour majority of 15 or 20,000. There are very few of those around to get back in. And if he can't find one of those, it's a really big risk.
Yeah.
And be quite humiliating as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no, how do we know he would have won Gorton and Denton if he'd stood there?
Well, exactly. And the other problem, of course, is if he does stand and get in, you've still got the problem of who would be the Labour candidate for the Mayor of Manchester?
Well, again,
and would Labour win that?
Well, Reform would go for that.
Yes,
it's a big ticket, that is. So, they're taking a massive risk. on that. Gosh. So that's the eye going for that. And then the Express, finally a move to bring down zombie Keir with a question mark. Because it is still very much a question mark with Wes Streeting. Although I think we would have seen a denial, wouldn't we, by now, if it wasn't going to happen?
Yes, it looks very much like it's just a question of when he comes out rather than...
It's got to be tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to... What time? If we have a little bet between ourselves?
Coffee time, mid-morning.
Yeah, I think it's earlier than that. I think he wants to do the rounds of the breakfast shows, or the breakfast programmes.
Bring in the producers as we speak, potentially.
Yeah, they'll be phoning them up now. I can see it now. I think I'm going to go for earlier than coffee time. But we'll wait and see. Vincent, thank you very much. Pleasure. Indeed. Great to see you. Vincent Moss, former political editor there. He's seen it all and it's all come back round. It never goes away. Right, I hope you haven't gone away, because next it is over to you. It is the Talkback Hour, and it gives you the opportunity to do exactly that, and that is to give me a call and tell me what you make of all of these shenanigans and, of course, the King's speech.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. I've just noticed at the top of The Guardian it said, "Listen and learn the hidden secret to spotting a liar." If it's a politician, it's when their lips move, isn't it? I think we've learnt that lesson. I think we know that. Anyway, look, this is Talkback. This is your chance to do exactly that. And a couple of questions I have for you, actually. One of them is on the King's speech and some of the things that were in the King's speech. And the other one, I'd like to find out from you what you think about the 5 million Farage story. Do you think it matters? Do you care? Look, he said that it wasn't a political donation, it was a personal donation, so he didn't have to declare it. There is now a watchdog looking into this, because he should really have, you know, the 12 months before you enter Parliament, you're supposed to tell them about it, all of these things, bits and pieces. But if it was a personal donation, a personal gift, no strings attached, then maybe it's perfectly fine with you. So that is the other story as well, because Farage is now facing a watchdog inquiry into the 5 million gift, and it could spell a bit of trouble for him. Do you think this is just the establishment going after Farage because they're scared of him? Or do you think that this looks and smells a little bit fishy and that you'd like to see some answers on this? So give me a call as well. If you want to talk about Farage, I'm more than happy to do that. 0344 499 1000. Our call's charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. So it's all politics, because that's all there is at the moment, isn't there? It's all about the politics. But I wonder how you feel about the King's speech and some of the things that were in it. Again, I thought it was incredibly tone deaf. I thought that it was really wishy-washy. And look, it's meant to be a bit, it's about setting a direction, if you like, for the government, rather more than just going into policy details. But champion the rights of women and girls to live in a world free from violence. Well, that should be a blooming given anyway, shouldn't it? What are they going to do to champion that? That is our right. That is a human right. It is our right as women to live in a world free from violence. Promoting women's full economic and political participation. Again, that is our right. So why are we talking about that? That should be a given. With agency over the decisions that impact their lives. What are you talking about? I mean, I don't know what... The fact that they've put that into the King's speech is incredibly worrying, because I thought we were supposed to be equal citizens. I thought that, our right to live without violence was a given. I thought our right to have agency over the decisions that we make in our lives was a right that we already had. It's all very perplexing. That I just don't quite understand. And there'll be ties, policy coming through, bills to strengthen ties with the European Union. You may as well think that is not what you voted for when you voted for Brexit, that you decided that you didn't want that already. And now he's gonna take us closer to Europe. There may be those of you who are thrilled with that. I mean, look, nearly half of people voted to remain, half, just over, voted to leave. So there will be a lot of people in this country who are pleased to see that. Are you one of them? Are you pleased to see that there will be bills taking us closer to Europe and the given costs that will be? The bills they'll also be unlocking the benefits of airport expansion. Does that trouble you on a daily basis? Is that something you think about? You wake up in the morning and you look at your pile of bills on the table, and that's old-fashioned, isn't it? Your pile of bills and go, God, blimey, I wonder how the airport expansion is doing. I'm really worried about that. That's what I really want to see. I want to see some airport expansion. That'll sort me out. No mention in the direction of smashing the gangs or sorting out the boat crisis. No mention of addressing the welfare bill that we know now is bigger than the income tax intake. So it's unsustainable. Things like cleaning up the water industry. Now, look, we'd all love to see clean rivers and clean beaches, but is that again at the fore when you're making yourself a cup of coffee in the morning? Is that the first thing you think about? It's like, I wish the waterways were cleaner. I don't think he's managed to hit the nail on the head with pretty much any of them, right? I mean, it's all like, yeah, and I mean, like I said, that whole policy on women, it's like, what are you talking about? I thought I already had agency over the decisions that impact my life. Are you trying to tell me something that I don't, as a woman, have that right? I don't have the right to live in a world without violence. Oh, that's news. So a lot of this is promoting women's full economic and political participation. Huh? Anyway, look. I'd love to know what you think about this King's speech. I just thought it missed the mark. I don't think he's listening. I don't think he's hearing. I don't think he understands why Reform and the Greens did so well. And it's so interesting to talk about that election last week, because those two parties, both at extreme ends, opposite ends of the political landscape, completely opposite, did well. So what does that tell us about where the country is? Are we going hard left or hard right? Now, Reform did better than the Greens, but still you can't ignore what the Greens did. So they've got these two extremes now. Where does the Labour Party set itself? Well, it's unlikely to convert Reform voters to Labour, so it's going to go more left, which probably spells more taxes, more borrowing, more spending, and more issues with prices. So I don't know whether it's just me that is looking at this in this way. I don't know, but it's just fascinating to me that this government seemed to be not just tone deaf, but almost completely deaf. And they're not reading the signs at all. They're not getting it at all. So what are they missing? What was missing from that King's speech? And normally we wouldn't bother with talking about it, but right now, because the political heart of Labour, they don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. That's why they are struggling to find somebody who is an instant shoo-in for Labour leader and therefore ergo Prime Minister. And I genuinely think that if they rush a contest, they're not thinking about us, right? They will just get rid of whoever that is for Andy Burnham later down the track. So it'll be another Liz Truss situation, where they didn't know who they wanted, so she managed somehow. I mean, how bonkers was that? Liz Truss, lest we forget, completely nuts. Because the Tories didn't know what they wanted. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't, and then Rishi Sunak was, I mean, he was crowned, wasn't he? Basically, he was the only one running. So they're only going to get rid of Wes Streeting. If I had his number, I'd give him a call and say, "What are you playing at? He said, you've got a year and a half max, mate. They're going to get rid of you." So, and all it means is that government is not working. That government isn't actually doing what we pay them an enormous amount of money to actually do. They're too busy running around making sure they've got enough votes and briefing against each other. So what we'll see tomorrow, I have no idea. But whatever it is chaos. It is chaos. Because Keir Starmer's made it very clear, he's not just going to walk away. He's not. He's not going to do it. He's going to hang on in there. Do you remember when he said, it's going to be country first? Do you remember that? I do. He said, we won't be putting party first. Well, he's putting himself first, isn't he? And the rest of the party are putting themselves first and the country second. So much for this is going to a new era of politics. We're going to be different. They're all the blooming same. That's why when I come on this show, I say I don't like any of them. And I genuinely mean it. I mean, there's those of you out there go, oh, you're such a lefty, you're such a Labour. I'm not. I think I made that very clear. I think they're all absolutely awful. And I only vote because people died for the right for me to have that vote. And I go in and I if it's an independent or if it's Lib Dem, anyone other than them, because I don't trust any of them. None of them, and I include the Greens and I include Reform, none of them care about us. It's evident because this country hasn't got better in the last however many years. Because they're not out to improve things for us. They're out to improve things for themselves. That's my view, anyway. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Have you had enough of this? Are you fed up with this? Are you sick and tired of it? Do you care? I mean, that's the other thing, isn't it? We're beginning not to care. Oh, I don't care. They're all the same. I don't care. And that is in itself a real problem. That's how Labour got the landslide victory that it did. Because so few of us even bothered voting. That's how democracy dies. Which is why I always insist on voting. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I thought I'd seen it all. Heather, good morning.
Good morning, Petra. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Same as usual. When I look at last week's election, why did Reform did extremely well by getting over 1,400 councils.
Council seats.
More than what the Green did, more than what the Conservatives did, and Labour lost a whole chunk of them to Reform. Do you know the simple key reason why is Reform is doing extremely well? Because they do listen to people. They go out on the street and listen to what people's concerns is all about the state of this country, where it's going into the future. And that's what they care about. The people do care about this country and the country's future. They care about their grandkids. They care about their own kids' future as well, because they need to have a future in this country as well.
Yeah, the thing is that if my concern is with the NHS, because you know that is sacred to us, and it isn't sacred to Reform in its current state.
Well, so you're wrong. You're wrong. Because Reform has stated in their conferences about NHS, if you start watching the conferences and start listening to what they are saying,
so they're going to keep the NHS free for all at the point of need. Is that what you're saying?
They are keeping the NHS free to the point of need. That's what Reform is doing. They are not privatising it. They are not going to touch it. They know that the NHS is sacrosanct to our country. That's the only key reason why people are galvanising.
But they're talking about a different model. They're talking about a different form of paying for the NHS to be closer to the American model.
Well, people's going to have to listen extremely hard for what they're saying, because when people have been insulting my party, Reform, I'm a member of Reform, paid up member of Reform. The reason why I've chosen Reform, because Reform is the only decent, sensible political party that's going, and they are serious players in this. They are no longer fringe parties in this. People have told the press, the media, some of you lot have not been honest and truthful with Reform, because we are getting really annoyed by people are sick and tired of insulting Nigel Farage and about the £5 million gift. That is for his security, because when
you believe that you believe that he shouldn't have mentioned it. Then he didn't have to report it.
Well, the reason why he reported it, he announced it, because that's for his security, because when Conservatives were in power, they refused to give Nigel Farage the protection. And same with the Labour Party as well, when they got in government.
So you believe that money... Hang on, Heather, hang on. It's supposed to be... You're not a party... This isn't a party political broadcast on behalf of Reform, right? This is a conversation. You believe that money was given free and without strings attached
Yeah, exactly. It's for his own security, to pay for his security staff, because he is not getting.
Well, then he won't have any problem. He won't have any problem showing the receipts, then, will he? He'll have all of that. If he's paying people, he'll have their PAYE, he'll have their national insurance, he'll have all of the details, and he can show that the £5 million was a private gift and was spent on security. Nothing to worry about.
Well, you don't know. Nobody knows that there's going to be a receipt of that. That £5 million.
You can't pay people in this country without
receipts.
Without receipts. So he will have receipts. Well, then it's nothing to worry about. If he's got...
What is to prove about the receipt? For God's sake, it's not a case about this receipt.
When Keir Starmer got free glasses, were you annoyed by that?
Well, I'm annoyed by what Labour's doing.
But were you annoyed? Were you one of those people who were annoyed? Heather, answer the question.
When there was the opposition party about, we're not going to be like Conservatives, when they backtracked, when they got in government, and then they did exactly the same.
But he got free suits and free glasses, not adding up to £5 million. So that's all right then. But you were one of those people who thought that was disgraceful.
To do with anybody else about Nigel Farage's safety and security? He has his life being threatened, and his life is being constantly being threatened, day by day, by the left-leaning people. Those people on the left.
I don't believe that's true. And the story about the firebombing, the police couldn't find any record of that either. So, look, if he's gotten it, there's an inquiry now, and we leave it to the inquiry.
There should be an inquiry about his security, about his threat.
No, there's an inquiry into this £5 million gift, and there should be an inquiry. There should be an inquiry into it, surely. We don't want people being... You shouldn't be.
No.
Why not?
That's the simple reason why. Nigel Farage's life has been threatened. Why can't you all just listen? Because
you're not listening. There should be an inquiry. Of course there should. And if he's not done anything wrong, it'll come out that he's not done anything wrong. Oh, she's put the phone down. Oh dear. See, this is the problem. This is a problem. No one can have a conversation. No one... people have to go, no, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm just saying there needs to be an inquiry. We have to make sure our politicians are not being bribed. That's the whole point. If there's an inquiry and it's found that he's done nothing wrong, fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with any of this. But if we find out it was a bribe, that is significant. That's a problem. But when people like Heather go, no, there shouldn't even be an inquiry. Well, nobody's saying he's guilty of anything. I certainly haven't. But if there's a £5 million gift hanging about, well, we've got to check and see if there were strings attached to it. And if there weren't, as he says, fine. Quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It's Petrie here with you, and we've got a couple of things on the table, if you like, this morning. One of them is the direction of travel of the Labour government, given the King's speech, and it's a Queen, King's speech today. And I'm telling you, the King looked livid. He looked absolutely fuming, and I'm pretty convinced that the slump and the I mean, it has to be fairly monotone anyway, as Vincent was saying, but that delivery was a protest. That was a King protest, I'm telling you, because he's sick and tired of all of this. I mean, his poor mother as well, having all those prime ministers that she had to say. Well, Liz Truss was the last one, wasn't she? But because I think the Queen died shortly after meeting Liz Truss, and there was lots of comments at the time. But yeah, so there's that, and also the Farage facing watchdog inquiry into the 5 million gift. And Heather, they're saying it shouldn't be an inquiry. There should not be an inquiry. And of course there should be an inquiry, because the last thing we want is anybody in government being paid to think a certain way. But we know this goes on anyway. With you've got all of the people surrounding governments who are lobbyists, and they're take them for big dinners and buy them seats to sporting events and things like that. It's all the same thing. But there should be an inquiry. And look, if there's nothing to see, there's nothing to see. But why should Nigel Farage be exempt from an inquiry into £5 million from one of their biggest donors? Why? He says it was a private gift. I don't know about you, but I don't know many people who give private gifts like that. I just, you know, look, if there are no strings attached, fine. I don't care. But if there are strings attached, we need to know about it. And it needs to be looked into. At the very least, you would expect that. Look, if anybody else, and like I was saying to Heather, you know, about Keir Starmer getting free glasses and free suits. I mean, that was the front page of the newspapers, free gear Keir, for days, if not weeks, wasn't it? How dare he have free... And I was one of them. I agree, it's wrong. Because there's no such thing as a free lunch. We know that. You don't get... I mean, who does that? So... if this man gave Farage £5 million for his personal security, then fine. That's his bother, that's his money. Farage spent it on security, no issues at all. Right, absolutely no problem. But if there was a single string attached to that, that needs to be looked into. But for some reason, because it's Nigel Farage, people think this is really unfair. If it was any other politician being given freebies. And look at the fuss that was made when, I can't even remember, was it Angela Rayner went to a concert, a Taylor Swift concert? One of them did. Rachel Reed, one of them went to a Taylor Swift concert that people couldn't get tickets to. Oh my God. Shocking behaviour, disgusting behaviour. £5 million? It's got to at least be looked at, right? Got to at least be looked into. It's only fair, isn't it? Zarina says 5 million is incredibly excessive. Why are questions not being asked about the size of the gift? This cannot be explained away. When Farage followers expect us to believe that it was for his security, despite no involvement with public office, I don't buy it. So a lot of people are asking these questions. It's just an inquiry. That's all it is. And I think that we would expect that for anybody. Mark is in Lincolnshire. Hello, Mark. You wanted to talk about this?
Hi, Diz. Hi, Petrie.
Hi, good to speak to you.
Hi, good to speak to you too. Yeah, this Farage debacle. It's rather funny. I was listening to Heather there, and it's just like, yeah, I'm so used to people like this now.
Yeah, they won't listen. There's just no conversation.
No, absolutely not. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I've spent a long time trying to tell these people this guy isn't what you think he is. But anyway, aside from that, this £5 million, that's an investigation that has to happen because he never declared it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Because he said it was a personal gift, not a political donation. Yeah. But if I can't have a gift, for example, a journalist in this building, for more than 50 quid, because somebody might be buying my favour. I don't get free gifts. We don't get sent free makeup or free anything, because they know that that is not going to buy me suddenly saying, oh yeah, this is great, or that's great, or buy that, or buy this. So I'm not allowed to have personal gifts. Exactly.
This is it, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, he received that payment, from what I can research, is early 2024. When he became an MP, he would have been told that any payments that he'd received in the previous 12 months before becoming an MP, he has to declare those payments. Yeah. The reality is he did not declare it. Therefore, it looks a bit fishy, especially when you consider the fact the guy that gave him this £5 million is also a big party donator. Mm. You know, it really does smell. You know?
I mean, it's at least got to be checked. Like I was saying, Mark, anybody else, we would be demanding this.
Absolutely.
There's got to be transparency.
It's just absolutely crazy, because I think the reality is, I think you get reactions like you do with somebody like Heather, you know, the real die-hard reformers, that I think they're so invested in reform at this point. Mm. The thing that I always find that I've, you know, gone at these kind of reformers in the past myself, is that you're claiming that you want to vote in reform because you're sick of the uni party. You're sick of the uni party because of all the corruption, the lying, the establishment nonsense and all the rest of it. And here you go. It's the exact same thing.
Potentially.
Like I say, they just kind of, they have this special place in their heads that they just put this stuff and just completely forget about it.
But I think it's the same as the MAGA appeal with Trump. It's the same sort of thing, is that they're so invested in Trump and in MAGA, and they found their people, and that's a very powerful thing when you find your clan, right? That even when Trump said earlier on yesterday, "Oh, I don't concern myself with the finances of the American people." You know, he actually said that on camera. He said, that doesn't concern me. I'm just thinking about the nuclear bomb. I'm not thinking about, what the American people are going through. And yet, again, MAGA reframed that completely and supported him on saying it. So it is an interesting thing that when you've got these charismatic leaders, which Nigel Farage no doubt is, right? He's extremely charismatic. He's got people who absolutely die-hard Farage supporters, reform supporters, who they think is going to fix everything. And like I said, I have no faith in any of the political parties, including Reform, Green, Tories, whoever. They're going to be disappointed, or not, or they're going to still support that.
I think, again, I mean, if Reform go into government, I've said this the whole time. My whole belief, if you think back earlier, probably not so much this year, but last year, and it still gets floated now and again. There's always this talk that floats now and again about, mass civil unrest, mass civil war, this kind of thing. Mm. I've always said for about 18 months now that my prediction on all that kind of stuff, I think that we are quite close to it in this country.
I think we're a very unhappy country at the moment, yeah.
Absolutely. But I believe quite truly, Petrie, that the catalyst for this is a reform government. Because I think what will happen is these people, as I was saying, they've put so much time and faith in Nigel Farage. When it all unravels, which it surely will, because I have absolute confidence that it will, from everything that I've seen with reform anyway, that the anger is going to be so palpable, it will just explode. That's what I will think, because they'll no longer feel as though they've got any kind of root. if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and also, I don't think that reform can live up to what people expect of it.
Precisely.
And because a lot of people are going, oh, they're going to stop the boats and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Brilliant. But when are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? Can they do it legally? All these camps that they're talking about, these migration camps, what are the laws? What are the things that are going to prevent them? What is the cost going to be? What is all of these details? And I think that people expect from day one that is what would happen with a reform government, and people aren't realising there are laws, there are protections, there are not even just the human rights courts, right? There's not just that. There's all sorts of other things, and costs and permissions, and the whole thing about building these camps in green council areas. Anybody who voted Green.
It's ridiculous.
Well, they're going to have to get planning permission from the very councils that they're saying that that they're going to build in their backyard, which they're not going to get. So,
exactly.
I mean, all of this. There's a lot of. I just think that if people get what they want, it might not turn out to be exactly what they thought they were getting. And I think in that regard, I can see that there might be some issues with a reform government, because even if they do everything they say they're going to do, they can't do it straight away.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way they can. All these things are going to take time. I mean, I'd have a lot more faith in their assertion that they're going to do all these things if they actually created some proper policy on this stuff. But they've yet to do any of that. It's all just statements.
Yeah. And that'll be
get out as well.
Yeah, that's going to have to be available to us all, right? They're going to have to come up with policies and costings and all of those things before the next election, and that's when we'll start to see what can and can't be achieved by a reform government, even if it's a full-on reform government, which now we're in this state, it's going to be a coalition of some sort. So that waters it down even further.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for example, they always go on about, as you'll know yourself, it's all about the ECHR, the International Human Rights Law, and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is, like you were saying, really, Petrie, for example, if you remember Chicken Nugget Man, who couldn't be deported because his son can't eat chicken nuggets in some country or other. Well, that relates to Section 55 of our own Immigration Act. It's got nothing to do with the ECHR.
Nothing to do with it. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. And you get rid of the ECHR. What do you replace it with? What the Human Rights Act? We're just not going to care about human beings anymore. I mean, is that we're going to destroy all the rights, or just choose the ones that we like and then forget everyone else? It's very much more complicated. And there are courts in this land that are not political who will fight this. All of those things. That it is not as easy or as cut and dried as people think it is going to be.
Yeah, 100%. I think whoever gets in power, it's not going to be easy. Put it like that. I mean, Reform are going to have a hell of a hard time.
It's going to be a coalition. I can't see an outright win. I think the country's too divided.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
to be honest.
And nothing happens in a coalition, right? You can imagine those two fight. Whoever it is fighting against each other. Look at what's happening tomorrow or today. You double that.
Can you have a coalition with somebody like Farage anyway?
Well, I mean, he may need
an ego like his.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you look at the last coalition we had was the Lib Dems and the Tories, wasn't it? And that was a disaster. Nobody won in that case, at least of all us. So, it wasn't...
It's always us that loses out.
It's always us that loses out. But look, this Farage 5 million, if it's all above board, fine. Right? You and I don't have a problem with that. This is not a witch hunt. This is just, if this was any other politician, we would need to know if there were strings attached. If there aren't, fine. Have your 5 million. You've got very generous friends. I'm jealous. But if not, we should know about it. That's all.
100%. I wish I had a friend like that.
I know. I was hoping you'd be my friend and you were a multi-millionaire, Mark, but clearly not.
You're absolutely joking.
I do accept donations, by the way, just in case anybody is wondering.
I was going to ask you for a £5.
oh, damn it. Yeah, you might have to wait a while for that. I'm not sure I've got the cash. Mark, good to talk to you. Thank you. Brilliant call. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. I'd like to hear what you think about the Farage 5 million. Maybe you think this is a witch hunt. I genuinely don't think it is. I mean, I don't dislike him any more than I dislike Keir Starmer or any of them. I mean, seriously. But if it's something to see, we've got to see it. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. We're discussing a couple of things this morning. It's all to do with politics, but basically the state of our politics at the moment is just woeful. It's embarrassing. And it's all going to kick off later on today as Wes Streeting is expected to resign and thereby launch his leadership challenge, and then others will pile in like little rats attacking a carcass. They'll all pop out and have a little go and see if they can be the next Prime Minister. But I caution all of them. I can see this. Mark my words. I wasn't wrong about Keir Starmer from day one. Whoever it is, if they do choose somebody different to Keir Starmer right now, they'll be gone before the next election because they'll want Andy Burnham in. So whoever it is the sort of token. It's the Liz Truss of prime ministers. And if Keir Starmer manages to cling on in there, he'll also be gone by the next election as well. So, but do we have two leadership contests or one? Because Andy Burnham will be positioned at some point and he'll come in and that'll be it. But this lot, whoever gets in now I'm telling you, is the new Liz Truss. They may last more than 47 days or whatever she lasted. I think, was it 46, 47, anyway, days. But it's only going to be a year and a half. And then they'll be gone. So I put money on that now. You just write it down. I said it first. And I'll admit if I'm wrong. Happy to. Always happy to admit if I'm wrong. But it's got that sense about it, hasn't it? Come on, be honest with me. It feels like that. Pauline is in Manchester and has called in. Good morning, Pauline. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Right, regarding the £5 million for Farage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Why is he not getting full protection? I just don't get why he's not getting.
No, this was before he was an MP. He got the money in the year before he was an MP.
Yeah, I mean it was probably in the cards then that he was going to get
But this was in the year before he was an MP, so that's what he's saying. He said he had to pay for private security.
It's probably in the cards, but had he not been firebombed?
No.
And that's why somebody offered him the $5 million?
No, the police couldn't find any evidence of a firebombing.
Could they not?
No.
Right, okay. But there just seems to be an absolute...
so you don't think there should be an inquiry?
Something on Farage, whatever.
Do you not think there should be an inquiry? I mean, this is nothing to hide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. If there's something untoward, absolutely.
We should know.
I've not got a problem with that.
Yeah, good. Because I'm the same. I don't care either way. I mean, if he's, I do care if it was amounts to a bribe. I don't care if it was a private gift. Just as long as we know.
I've not got a problem with that, but I do not understand why he's not getting protection. Full stop.
Well, he gets as much protection as any other MP at the moment. So, he's an MP now. But this money came in before, in the 12 months before he was an MP.
Right. So,
so he wasn't entitled to the...
Totally agree with any inquiry regarding that. I've got a feeling it'll come down to, let's have a go at Farage. Let's find anything. But... can we get to this bloody Starmer thing? And Burnham, why do people think that Burnham
is the king of the North? Yeah.
He's not. I live in Salford. I'm Greater Manchester. He's like Manchester City Council, whatever. Try going into Manchester city centre at night.
Really?
It's disgraceful. Honestly, it's frightening. If anybody wants a family night out, a family day out, I mean, I walked through Manchester city centre, beggars, threatening.
Yeah, we all think that Manchester is this, there's this haven under Andy Burnham, and that he's going to save the country.
Is it hell? Honestly, it's just, it's just so, it's disillusion of Andy Burnham being the messiah.
Yeah.
Of what I'm hearing on whatever channel, Sky.
Yeah, everybody thinks he's this great saviour, and the Labour Party think he is. Yeah,
he's not. Please, Liverpool, take him. Please, have him with pleasure. But nobody will vote him in. Nobody.
I know. I think that's interesting, Pauline, because I do think that if there is a safe seat, I don't think there is such a thing anymore, that it's not a given that Andy Burnham would win it, particularly up north, right? I'm not sure he would have won the last by-election, the Gorton Denton by-election. So I don't know, they're banking on him winning, but I think a lot of people would go, well, actually, no, we're not going to let you do that.
Well, believe me, Liverpool or Merseyside, Manchester, right, okay. Is Merseyside going to take Manchester reject? They're not. It's like Liverpool and Manchester United. We don't want no cast-offs, mate.
It's just not going to happen, is it? But the state of politics in this country, do you think that reform genuinely is the answer to the country?
I've got to say I'm a member of Reform.
Right, that's fine.
I am a member.
That's all right.
And I have... I'm not apologising. I'm self-employed. I've got a lot of customers on every party level. Green, Conservative, Labour, Reform, everything. And we can have intelligent conversations, thankfully.
Yeah.
But even they say that Labour now is just dead.
Oh, yeah.
Even Labour supporters are saying, Starmer's killed it.
Honestly, I completely agree with you. I mean, I don't know why people think I'm such a lefty, because I've got absolutely no time for this government. Absolutely none, and haven't done from day one. I've criticised them all the way through, as they deserve, frankly.
One of my sisters is actually a Labour councillor.
Wow. That's a tough gig at the moment, isn't it?
Well, we haven't spoken for 2 years.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Totally different. Well, actually, I mean, I'm sorry. I hate being patronised. I can't. She would not discuss politics with me whatsoever. I have voted Conservative all my life up until just before COVID.
They let us down as well, didn't they? I mean, they were a disaster. This is the problem. They're all bad.
I actually like Kemi.
Yeah, she's actually doing all right. Yeah, I agree.
And honestly, if she'd been there at the start of COVID and during COVID, I'd have stayed with Conservative. I'd voted Conservative all my life.
Yeah, I think she's really stepping up to it, isn't she, Pauline? She's really becoming what I thought she might be at the beginning, but she started really badly. But now she's found her feet, and I think
right person, wrong time.
Yeah, often the case with politicians, isn't it? Pauline, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. I've got to go because I'm really late to a break, so I've got to take that break, and I'll be back in just a mo.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. It's Petrie here with you on Talkback, and you're certainly doing that this morning. Luke has said, "You're a lady after my own heart. I feel completely homeless, politically homeless. Whatever happened to nuance? You're either one or the other. In between doesn't exist." That's my problem, is that I am very much in the sort of middle of, I'm not extreme on either side. Some left policies I like, some right policies I like, but that seems to be homeless now. Whatever. You don't get given gifts of that size for nothing, regardless of when it was. This is talking about the 5 million. I think Reform getting in would be pound shop Trump getting power. The Greens, any normal person who's slightly better off would be absolutely screwed, not the rich. Here's for hope. Petrie, I agree, Luke. You're again. I think most of us sit somewhere in the middle. I genuinely do. I'll die on that hill. I keep saying it. I think most of the country are in the middle, who take some from the left, some from the right. Chris Harborne, says Andrew from Salisbury, should have financed Nigel Farage's security rather than gift him £5 million. The whole thing stinks. Oh, it was within the rules. Where have we heard that before? Do you remember that with the MP's expenses? And I just want to read Sammy's out before I go back to the phones. The poor old king today, he should not be in this situation. I'm sure every time he said my government, he sighed and rolled his eyes a little. Starmer should be very ashamed. Unfortunately, he won't be. Very good, Sam. I completely agree. Poor king. Alison is in County Antrim. Antrim, hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Petrie.
What do you think about the investigation into Nigel Farage? Is this a witch hunt? Is this just, we're all having a go at Nigel Farage, or is it fair?
No, it's definitely not a witch hunt. I think it's just generally there's been so much emotion running up to what has happened lately. And, the whole thing with Keir Starmer, that I just think that, people are sort of looking for hope, and for somebody to cling on to. So I think that probably Nigel Farage is the person who a lot of people are clinging on to right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, absolutely. I mean, £5 million.
It's a hell of a gift, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And especially whenever the person who donated it is or was a billionaire, and like foreign based at that. And I mean, there's so many things that, for example, I used to work in civil service, and I know that there's such a thing as conflict of interest, etc. So, those people can't just go in, the MPs and, the people who are voted up for election can't just go in and do whatever they want.
No, and there has to be scrutiny across all of them, right? I mean, that's only fair. And that's why there are certain limits on how much money can be given, and where, and they're going to now put limits on foreign money coming in and supporting political parties as well. And I think that's absolutely right. We don't want other countries interfering in our democracy. In fact, we don't want businesses interfering with our democracy. That's not what it should be about. And I think that it's only reasonable. I mean, look at this fuss that was caused over, like I said earlier, Keir Starmer's glasses and suits and the free concert tickets and things like that. Because people are concerned that why are you getting free stuff? Who from? What for? What do they want for it?
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, if there's nothing at the end of the day, I mean, it'll only serve to uphold British standards in Parliament. If Nigel Farage does go through this inquiry, he should welcome it in a sense. He will.
Yeah, he should welcome it in a sense, to say, look, this genuinely was a gift. Genuinely, I didn't think I had to report it. My bad if I should have done. That's fine, because if an inquiry would just say, okay, nothing to see here, great. Well, none of us have a problem with that.
Yes, and Nigel Farage then can have confidence going forwards, and even more importantly, so his voters can have confidence.
Exactly. I don't think there's anything wrong here. I don't think there's anything bad here. I don't think this is a witch hunt. And a lot of people say, they're just attacking it because it's Nigel Farage. It's £5 million. It's a lot of money, right? I could live on that for a while, couldn't you?
Definitely, absolutely.
I tell you what, if somebody gives me 5 million, I'll give you 1 million, all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just if it's a gift, I'll give you 1 million. You can hold me to that, all right?
Yeah, and I mean, even though, like, it was a gift in inverted commas, but nonetheless,